All right, guys, welcome to Press X Podcast, episode 136. Want to, as always, thank everyone for being here so early, waiting patiently for the show to start. Always enjoy, as I say, watching you guys kind of converse in the chat as we wait. And I see right off the bat here, I have quite a few different super chats. So no worries. I'm going to be getting to those in just a moment. Figured I would just acknowledge that here, so you guys don't think I'm ignoring you or anything like that. But yeah, thank you for being here. We have certainly some interesting topics to go over today. I mean, look, I think we can all agree that things in the gaming industry have slowed down a little bit. That's pretty normal, I would say, during this time of the year. We do have the Game Awards coming up, which is, I think, really exciting. I mean, I know that Jeff Keighley kind of gets a lot of flack, I think, year over year, and there's no doubt that some of the shows he put on earlier this year, like Gamescom and Summer Game Fest, maybe didn't necessarily live up to expectations, but the Game Awards is the big show of the year. The big Jeff Keighley show of the year. And, you know, I'm looking forward to it. I think last year's show was, I think it was pretty good. So I'm looking forward to that, but there's no denying that things have slowed down a little bit. And I think a big reason for this, is because of what's going on with the Microsoft Activision Blizzard, acquisition. And we've been talking about this a lot on the podcast throughout the months. We've been covering it here on the channel. And my hope was that not only would we not have to keep talking about it, but I was hoping that maybe something else would replace it, that something else would happen. And unfortunately, that's not really what happened. This is continuing to make headlines. There is new stuff coming out with this each week. And, there's no doubt that a very big topic we're going to be discussing over the course of this episode today has to do with the latest information and the latest updates regarding this, because Sony is getting more aggressive than we've seen before. And I want to correct a couple of things that I said in my videos throughout this past week. I think that my thought process and my line of thinking towards this acquisition, specifically with the way Sony is handling it, I think I had some flawed thinking, some flawed thoughts on it, and I want to kind of rectify that today and update you guys on my opinions regarding this. So I'm just basically letting you know now that a big portion of this show is going to be talking about that. But that's certainly not the only thing we're going to be discussing. We're going to be talking, of course, about God of War Ragnarok. I have two separate topics I want to discuss regarding God of War. The first topic is the fact that it broke a record for PlayStation and is now the best-selling first-party studio title, ever, which is certainly an impressive feat by Santa Monica Studio. But I also want to talk more about the game. And I'm going to let you know that this will be a spoiler cast to a degree. Now, obviously, I will give you fair warning, I should say, before I get into any spoiler territory. And I will, if I'm able to do it, I think I can, I will put up a little red spoiler or just text on the screen that basically says spoiler. So that way, if you pop into the stream and you're waiting for it to end, if you don't see that spoiler logo there, then you'll know we're not talking about it anymore. Or if you're watching the podcast later on and you're kind of skipping through, anywhere you don't see the spoiler, then that means we're not talking about it and you're safe. Although I do think most people probably completed the game by now. I mean, I know not everybody did, but I have to assume that most people have. It's been, almost not quite a month, but it's been some time. So we're going to talk about that. Other topics we're going to discuss. I know it's kind of funny, and it's certainly silly to be talking about it, but it's something that happened this week. Apparently, we have an idea of when the PlayStation 6 is going to release. And this is coming directly from Sony. Like, this is Sony letting us know when they anticipate they're going to release the PlayStation 6. So we'll talk a little bit about that just because I think it's pretty interesting. Not that it's necessarily relevant because it's quite some time from now. We're going to be talking about how Sony is continuing to expand their China gaming effort with the China Hero project. And we're going to be talking about some other topics. We'll talk about the Callisto Protocol coming up. A little bit of controversy there regarding the Season Pass, but I think people are still excited for it. We'll talk a little bit about The Witcher 3's big next-gen upgrade, and we'll probably talk about some other topics as well that just kind of pop up throughout the course of this show. So that's just a kind of quick rundown of some of the stuff we're going to be talking about. But before we do dive into the first topic, I want to, first of all, encourage everybody, please hit that like button for me. If you enjoy the podcast, if you enjoy the show, or you just enjoy the content in general, hitting that like button helps a lot. So if you're here live, hit that like button. If you are somebody who's watching later on, still, please hit that like button. Every like helps. But really quick, I'm going to just let everybody know ways you can continue to support not only Press X Podcast, but my channel in general. I tell you guys every week, you are absolutely the backbone of this channel. And I simply could not do what I do here in the way that I do it without your continued support. So a couple ways you can support me directly: donating a super chat during live streams, as a few people have already done here. That's a great way to support me directly. And obviously, I read whatever it is you put up, as long as it's, appropriate for the podcast, which you guys are very good with that. It always is. So consider donating a super chat if you're able to. And if you want, you can also become a channel member as well. That's your way to support me month over month, and you get a couple of exclusive benefits for being a channel member. So look into that. And obviously, shout out to everybody who does super chat me. Shout out to all of my channel members. Shout out to all of you guys who watch my content. All right. Now, first, I'm going to start here with the super chats that I have. We have quite a few super chats from Pragmaticat back to back. So I'm just going to read them, all the way through. So Pragmaticat says, I always thought cars should use Sony audio. I think Sony Mobility's partnership with Honda could be the start of something huge for Sony audio in cars. You say, imagine if Sony Mobility Audio could just partner with Japanese auto manufacturers. That's 1/3 of the cars in the world. If the Japanese auto manufacturers came together to agree to use Sony audio in their cars, Sony could greatly reduce the price of them through mass manufacturing, and while giving Japanese cars an edge with the best audio and generating tons of money for Sony to invest in the PlayStation division. And then you conclude by saying, Japan is Sony's secret weapon alongside anime and manga's possibilities for crossovers with Sony films and Sony PlayStation and vice versa, and the Japanese developers. So quite a bit there. First of all, I want to extend a big thank you, Pragmaticat. Those are, it's a very generous string of super chat donations there. And, I have to say, this is something that I didn't even consider, something I didn't even think of. Some people might be wondering why Pragmaticat is talking about, Sony and their cars. Sony is getting involved with cars. They're partnering with Honda, and a topic we did cover this past week is how apparently Sony is going to try. I don't know how this is going to work, but they're apparently going to try to get PlayStation 5 into their vehicles. They're going to try to build PlayStation 5s into the vehicles. It sounds really cool, and I do like that idea, but it just seems like we're kind of far away from that happening. But Sony does see the PS5 and the fact that they're so big into, the entertainment side of things, is something that they could leverage to help them maybe succeed or stand out in the in the automobile world. And so you're talking about Sony audio. I have to say, this is something that I didn't even consider. I think we're all in agreement that Sony, when it comes to audio, they do it really well. They are kind of on another level, depending on, how much money you're able or willing to invest into it. But Sony's audio is no joke. I mean, we see even with the PS5 what they have done with the Tempest engine and 3D audio. And granted, I don't think enough developers fully utilize 3D audio, but for those that do it right, if you have a good pair of headphones or a headset that supports it, you really can tell that there are a few different layers there that wouldn't normally be present. So Sony does a fantastic job with audio, and this idea of them kind of getting involved in the in the automobile industry with their audio, that's an interesting prospect. We'll see. We'll see if they end up doing anything there. But the final thing you say regarding, Japan being Sony's secret weapon, I actually fully agree with that. I think that these are different tools, I guess you could say, at Sony's disposal, and different strengths that they can at any time choose to leverage. And I think we are seeing them do that, just in a more conservative way, but they're doing it nonetheless. And I always love to see Sony have a big push with Japan, obviously. I mean, they're a Japanese company, but their focus more recently has obviously been on, America or the Americas, Europe and stuff like that. But one thing I'm going to be looking out for, not to bring it up because I know it's like a meme, I bring it up every single show, but whenever Sony does have another proper showcase, I'm going to be really interested to see, what type of Japanese games they end up showing off. And I mean like bigger, maybe even like, first party Japanese games. We know that Sony doesn't really have a ton of studios, internal studios anyway, in Japan. We know there's Team Asobi. We know they have XDev, but is there one I'm forgetting? I don't think so. But I don't know. There was this rumor a while ago that Sony was going to announce that they built a new AAA Japanese studio, and it sounded too good to be true, honestly, but it did make sense. And unfortunately, as of right now, that's not something that was ever announced. I don't think that that's something that ever happened, but man, that would be a really cool thing for Sony to do. Anyway, I'm really starting to get off track here, but thank you so much for those super chats. Oh yeah, Polyphony Digital, of course. Not sure how I forgot. Well, I mean, Polyphony Digital, I guess it's understandable to a degree why I would maybe forget them. Shame on me, though. Shame on me. Actually, I just read apparently they are looking into bringing Gran Turismo 7 to PC. So that'll be interesting. And I'm telling you, man, we're going to start to see a very big push, I think, from Sony. We are seeing a big push from Sony into the PC market, but I think we're really going to start to see them ramp it up. And, I've tried telling all PlayStation fans, because I know, I know that PlayStation fans have a weird relationship with PC. I mean, it's different for every PlayStation fan, but obviously there's been some serious friction at times or hesitation. And I've tried telling everybody, look, I mean, Sony has fully embraced the PC market at this point. I see all of their games eventually going to PC at some point, and that does include PS5 games, so I think there's going to be a big push there. But thank you again, Pragmatic Cat. PlayStation Pete, you're saying Elden Ring and Stray beat God of War at the Golden Joystick Awards. That is true. I mean, I'm going to be honest. I don't really look to the Golden Joystick Awards as some type of serious, award show. I know a lot of people don't even look at the Game Awards that happen at the end of the year as a serious award show. I do look at the Game Awards as a more serious reward show. or award show, I should say. But the Golden Joysticks, I don't pay that much attention, but that is pretty funny. That is pretty funny. Not necessarily Elden Ring, but to me, it's funny that Stray beat out God of War. Something else I saw with the Golden Joystick Awards is how apparently Horizon Forbidden West won Best Narrative. And a lot of people were flabbergasted by that because they're like, how, like, I mean, how does Horizon win Best Narrative when God of War Ragnarok exists? And there are other games that I think people consider, like maybe Plague Tale Requiem, have a better storyline, better narrative overall. I mean, I'll be totally honest. I loved Horizon Forbidden West, but the story was not as strong as the first game. And the story really kind of went off the rails at certain points, and it just wasn't as cohesive or as well executed. It wasn't bad. Like, I know some people think that the story was bad. To me, it wasn't bad. It didn't make me feel like, wow, this is really dumb. But there just were some moments where it's like, okay, this is where they're going. You're saying God of War was not nominated. Oh, I guess maybe it came. Maybe that's why. Maybe it came before, or the nominations were out before God of War released. That would make a lot of sense. But yeah, I don't follow the Golden Joystick Awards that closely. So, but yeah, Stray beating out God of War. It makes sense that Elden Ring would win though. Whatever they won. Maybe they won like the Game of the Year award, I guess, from the Golden Joysticks. So thank you for that, PlayStation Pete. Caped Crusader, member for 20 months. Thank you, man. Greatness awaits. You're saying, MBG, remember how I told you earlier this year that Sony will sneakily get away without doing a showcase? It's pretty much December now. No showcase. Gotta give credit where it's due, man. Excuse me. Sorry. Got to give credit where it's due, Caped Crusader. You were absolutely correct. I mean, you were certainly not the only one that said this. There were quite a few people that were saying, like, dude, Sony ain't going to do a showcase this year. To be honest, I don't think anybody... Well, you know what? I'm curious. I'll ask the chat. Maybe anybody who's watching this after the fact, you can let me know in a comment. Do you still believe that Sony may do some type of show before the year's end? Is there anybody here who still thinks so? Me personally, I think there's zero chance whatsoever. I mean, if you would have asked me like 2 months ago, I would have said I was pretty confident that Sony would have a showcase. You're saying that Sony will be at the Game Awards. You know, I think we need to slow our roll on this. I hate to say this. I really, truly do. Because believe me, you guys know. I don't have to tell you. You know I'm the PlayStation hype man. You know I'm the guy who's always looking forward to Sony's new game announcements. I'm not saying that Sony won't be present at the Game Awards in any capacity when it comes to announcements. But something I think we really need to focus on and keep in mind, and I despise this, Microsoft always ruining things for us. Apparently, Microsoft is even ruining it for Xbox fans at this point. With the Activision Blizzard deal being in the spotlight right now, and clearly it's reaching a fever pitch level where there's more eyes on it and there's more, I guess you could say, uncertainty than ever before with this deal. Apparently, well, I don't want to say apparently because we don't know for sure, but it's seeming like there's a pretty good chance that neither Sony nor Microsoft will participate in any meaningful or significant way during the Game Awards outside of, obviously, Sony's games being there to potentially win awards. Apparently, and I don't know where this comes from, but I was reading a couple of headlines where there's now rumors circulating that Microsoft is skipping out on the Game Awards because of the whole regulator thing. They don't want the regulators on them. And I'll tell you right now, if Microsoft's skipping, Sony's absolutely skipping. But I don't want to say that means we won't get anything. It's just, I guess, honestly, until this is cleared up, guys, and this is going to help me segue into this conversation. It seems to me like Sony is going to do the absolute bare minimum to just keep their business running as smoothly as they can while this is going on. Because Sony wants this blocked. Okay? And we're going to dive deep into that. To me, that's the biggest thing that came out of the new information, this new report from the CMA regarding Sony, their 22-page write-up. The most important thing we learned is that it's clear Sony is not willing to make a deal with Microsoft for Call of Duty. Sony is throwing down the gauntlet and simply saying, we want this blocked, and we will do anything within our power to help push for that. And that's significant because this should tell you just how serious Sony is about not giving Microsoft anything when it comes to this Activision Blizzard deal. So we will get to that. Let me just continue with these super chats. Lyro, you're saying if the Activision Blizzard deal won't go through, will they have no choice but to cut corners like selling Blizzard, King, or some of their IPs, etc.? It's difficult to say. If this deal gets blocked, I don't know exactly what that means for the future of Activision Blizzard, but it doesn't mean anything good for them. I know that for a fact. I mean, don't get me wrong. I don't want to see Activision Blizzard bought up by Microsoft. I don't. I want to see them remain independent. But there's no denying that Activision Blizzard has done some serious damage to their own reputation, to their own studios, to their own IP, to their own business, even for as successful as Call of Duty is, to where, they refer to this as, somebody like Bobby Kotick, for example, they're getting the golden parachute, where this man, you see the Twix bar? Okay, good. I was wondering if that was going to show up on screen. I'm ready to go, man. I'm ready to go. Not to deviate, but Zay Very Rare, member for 12 months, says, I see the Twix bar. Is it left or right? I don't know. It doesn't say. It's just a regular old Twix bar. But yeah, I came prepared for this episode in case the blood sugars start to tank. Need to keep the energy flowing. That's funny though, dude. I didn't know that was on screen. But so thank you for that, Zay Very Rare. But getting back to Activision Blizzard, with Microsoft buying them up, if it goes through, Bobby Kotick gets out scot-free. This is an individual who is clearly a horrible person who's done horrible things and has done horrible damage to people in the company, to studios, and it's poor management all around. Clearly, poor management has plagued Activision Blizzard, and it's kind of funny if you think about it, because the idea that Microsoft buying Activision Blizzard would lead to better management is kind of comical, because Microsoft has a extensive history of horrible management themselves. But I guess maybe it's like looked at as, the better of two evils here. I mean, Activision Blizzard, leading up to this acquisition, it was looking real bad. But if this deal gets blocked, and that's what I want to talk about. Okay, I want to kind of dive deep into the ramifications of if this deal gets blocked, because I feel like we've spent so much time talking about it going through, and I think that's because for a long time it seemed like, oh yeah, of course it's just going to go through, but now it's seeming like it might not. It's seeming like there's a pretty decent chance that this could get blocked, and if it does, we have to talk about what this means for Microsoft. And I think that there was a take that I had, an opinion that was potentially completely wrong and completely backwards, where I was under the impression that, let's just say the FTC blocks this, right? Even if they take it to court, maybe the FTC wins out, but in the end, it gets blocked. I was under the impression that it didn't matter because all Microsoft would then do is turn around and go buy someone else. But then I was made aware that that's not really how that works. Based off of what people were telling me, and I'm going to be honest, I'm not the most well-educated in this area, so I'm still likely wrong to a degree in what I'm saying, but people were telling me that that's not really how it works. If Microsoft gets this deal blocked, it's essentially a massive black mark for them that's going to make it incredibly difficult, if not just totally impossible, for them to do anything even close to that scale going forward in the gaming industry. And that to me is where I was like, that actually makes a lot of sense. That makes a lot of sense. I don't think it means that Microsoft would never be able to make another acquisition. Of course, I think that they could buy some smaller independent studios, of course. But this notion that I had, and this maybe poor understanding, where I thought, okay, if this deal for Activision Blizzard and Microsoft gets blocked, then all that's going to happen is Microsoft's just going to turn to Capcom. They're going to turn to Ubisoft. They're going to turn to EA, and they're going to try to buy them or Take-Two Interactive. But that, based off of what I understand now, that's not what would happen. Essentially, if this deal gets blocked, the days of mega corporations such as Microsoft buying publishers is pretty much over. That's basically what I'm hearing. And I realize now that if that's what's on the line, then I absolutely want to see this get blocked. Because if Microsoft fumbles this and it gets blocked, suddenly that means, if that ultimately means ain't no one buying any publishers, then I support that. That's what I support. So, I mean, that obviously that doesn't mean that again, smaller studios couldn't get bought up. I see Silt saying that's not true. Well, see, that's the thing, is like I can't say whether or not that is the truth or not. I don't have the full understanding to know what exactly it means for Microsoft. I think very few people actually do. You're saying, MBG, whoever told you that has no idea what they're talking about. Well, what I'm beginning to realize is with this whole thing, it seems like very few people really actually know. And I'm not going to sit here and pretend that I know, because I don't. Like, I haven't really paid close attention to how these massive acquisitions work in general until Microsoft basically started buying up publishers in the gaming industry. You need a lawyer to know? Yeah, that sounds about right. Matt York, a member for 9 months. You're saying New Year's is coming up. I'm expecting a 24-hour Crackdown 3 stream. I want to see you stream that game, the game that broke your very soul, live, LMAO. Dude, I mean, that would be a very entertaining stream. You know what would be the funniest thing if I did that? 24-hour Crackdown 3 stream. It's like I beat the game. I do all this stuff in it. By the end of the 24 hours, I'm like, you know what, guys? I think I was wrong about Crackdown 3. This game's actually pretty fun. Everybody be like, no, MBG, go get some sleep. You're delirious, man. You don't know what you're saying. But yeah, that would be pretty funny, man. Aaron says, MBG, it will be hard for Microsoft to buy EA or Take-Two Interactive if this deal gets blocked. It's simple. MBG jurisdictions like Poland with publishers without US and UK relevance is very possible. ABK has relevance in different jurisdiction. This is why they need approval from those countries. Mark Lovin, you're saying, happy Sunday, MBG, so close to the Callisto Protocol. Did you end up picking up some games on Black Friday? Actually, I didn't pick up any games on Black Friday. I did check out Amazon for a little bit, but literally every game was sold out. Every accessory was sold out. I'm like, oh, okay, no, not a big deal. I mean, I wasn't looking to stock up on a bunch of games. The next game I plan to play is the Callisto Protocol. So, I, as far as I'm aware, that game wasn't on sale. It's not even out yet. So, but yeah, dude, Callisto Protocol is so close. Can't wait for it. I'm feeling a little nervous about review scores for this game only because I think that a lot of people are nervous about it. I think a lot of people are nervous that if the Callisto Protocol doesn't review good, if it doesn't get like a really good Metacritic, then it's a dud. But I don't know, man. I'm still confident in it. I feel like there are just those times where you see games and you just know, like, that's for me. This game's for me. I see that with the Callisto Protocol. So I'm not too worried about it, but I will be interested to see how it reviews. Just curious. So thank you for that, Mark. Josh, you're saying Sony won't be signing anything regarding Call of Duty with Microsoft because that would ultimately be proof on paper that Sony has given their blessing. Yes, that's very true. That's very true. I mean, my tune on this has changed. Okay, if you've been following me for a little bit, you have heard me basically say I'm tired of seeing Sony, fighting this. I'm tired of seeing Sony, say some of these things to make themselves look a little bit weaker than they are. And I even said like multiple times, like I wish this deal would just go through so this could be over. But I realize now that there's more on the line here than I realized with this whole thing. And I just, after the latest reports have come out between what Microsoft is saying and what Sony is saying, I now realize that I can't stand Microsoft, man. I just can't stand them. I know that there are people who are like, oh my God, I'm tired of tuning into the podcast and all you do is complain about Microsoft. I don't know what to tell you at this point in time. I'm not here to just bash Microsoft, to just bash Xbox for the sake of saying, I don't like Xbox, therefore Xbox bad. Not at all. In fact, I think if you've listened to me discuss Xbox in the past couple of months, you'll know I think I've been critical but fair in my evaluation. You could disagree with it, but now I'm beginning to realize that I just have no respect for Microsoft with what they're doing in the gaming industry. People could talk about Game Pass. People can talk about, oh, Microsoft gives me the best deal. And that's fine. That's fine. But for me, I see Microsoft as a mega corporation that I just think it's comical that they come out here and they say, let us have competition. All we want is competition. No, you don't. You got beat to a pulp by your competition. That's what happened. And now Microsoft steps in and they say, okay, well, we couldn't win that game. Because look at the rhetoric out there right now. Oh my God, Sony and their timed exclusives. Oh man. Final Fantasy. Look, Silent Hill 2 is a year exclusive. People really come out here and they act as if Microsoft has not done the exact same thing for over 2 decades. People talk so fondly about the Xbox 360 era and how that was the golden age of Xbox. And a lot of people focus on that era because that was the only time where Microsoft actually competed against Sony at a high level. That was the only time where it seemed like, oh, damn, Microsoft may be turning the corner here with the 360. They might start beating Sony at their own game here. And people loved it. And how did Microsoft achieve that? Was it by buying publishers? No. It was by doing what we have seen Sony continue to do and what Microsoft has done up until the past couple of years. First-party studios, first-party output, partners, second-party relations, occasional third-party exclusive, third-party marketing deals. You know, and to me, it's just comical that people are out here being like, oh, well, you know, Microsoft is, they're just upping the competition. No, they're not. No, they're not. You can say what you want about Sony. You can say what you want about Nintendo, but neither Sony nor Nintendo have come out here and attempted to buy a publisher. And if you want to make the argument, well, that's because they can't. Sure, maybe there's truth to that, but still, just because the competition can't afford it, that suddenly makes it fair? That suddenly makes it right? No, that's not how this works. I love how the best response that people can give sometimes is, well, you know, Sony would. They would do the same thing. It doesn't matter what Sony would, could, or should do. Woulda, coulda, shoulda. What matters is this is what Microsoft is doing. And so if you want to make the argument that, well, it's business, man, who cares about what's fair? I'll tell you what, you as the consumer better damn care about what's fair. Because there's the conundrum. There's the catch-22 right there. Well, who cares? It's just business. No, who said it has to be fair? Think about that. Think about that. If you don't care about what's fair in business, and you just basically want to say, oh, well, look, they're doing what they got to do to win. Where do you think that leaves you in all of this? You think they give a shit about being fair to you? This is where people don't get it, man. No matter how much I try to make it clear, no matter how much other people try to make it clear, that yes, these are corporations and these are businesses, and they don't care about your feelings. They don't care about what's right or what's wrong or what's fair and what's not. And I'm not saying that I expect them to. But putting aside woulda, coulda, shoulda, what I'm seeing is a multi-trillion-dollar company not be able to do what their competition did. And so their way of competing is, you know what? All these third-party games from these independent third-party publishers, we're just going to buy them. And we're just going to put them on our platform. And we're going to put them on our subscription service. And we're going to take them away from you. And we're not just going to stop with one publisher. Nope. We're going to buy one publisher. And then another publisher. And then, if nobody gets in our way, we'll buy another one. So, with all of this, I just realized that, you know, Microsoft, it's just a shame. It is. It's just a shame that they failed so badly last generation. They couldn't produce games last generation. They couldn't produce games that were significant last generation. It got so bad, and it's such a shame that now this is what they have to resort to in order to compete. So, the final thing, well, it's probably not the final thing I'll say, but what I will say is that, look, if you're somebody who makes the argument that, well, who cares? Who cares? You know, like, if this is how Microsoft wants to compete, then let them do it. You know, who cares about what's fair? This is business, right? Fine. I understand that. I get that. But something you need to understand and you need to look at and pay attention to, even if you are an Xbox fan, in my opinion, even if you're somebody where that's your preferred platform, something I think people need to realize is you cannot ignore Microsoft's history. You cannot be ignorant to what Microsoft has done and what they've made it clear that you cannot ignore their intent, is what I'm trying to say. You cannot ignore their intent. And to ignore their intent or to downplay their intent while simultaneously saying that this is their way of competing and, you know, this means I can get access to Activision Blizzard games through Game Pass, whatever it might be, you are losing the forest for the trees big time. And if you can't see some of the serious long-term damage or potential negative ramifications of a deal like this going through, then I don't know what to tell you. But all I will say is, if you're cheering this on, you're likely also somebody who's cheering on the potential, I don't want to say destruction, because I think that's a bit hyperbolic, but you're cheering on some serious damage being done. Saying MBGU could not sound more hypocritical. Well, here's the thing, dude. Here's the thing. You can call me a hypocrite, probably because you're assuming that I'm the same person that'll say, yeah, Final Fantasy exclusive, suck it, Microsoft. Here's the thing. I do not care. I do not care about Sony's third-party exclusivity deals. Mostly because that's like, I can see the benefit and there's no doubt it helps, but it's not hypocritical because, putting aside my care for it, you cannot. And to me, like, this is the punchline of it all. You cannot seriously, with a straight face, say that Sony doing a couple of third-party exclusivity deals for the PlayStation console is on the same level as Microsoft buying entire publishers to then take their entire future catalog of IP and rip it away. You cannot even begin to compare those two things, especially when you consider the fact that the overwhelming majority of third-party exclusives from Sony's side are timed exclusives, and they end up eventually making their way to Xbox. So you want to highlight Final Fantasy VII Remake? Okay, that's one title. Even Final Fantasy 16, I mean, look, it's going to be exclusive to the PS5 for the first 6 months. Then it's going to release on PC. Xbox fans are saying this might go to Xbox, and it might. It might. We don't know. But even a game like Silent Hill 2 Remake, that's going to Xbox after a year. A game like Forspoken, even though it has a weird, I don't know why, it has a 2-year exclusivity window, which is so bizarre, but that's also going to go to Xbox. You know, when you look at that, you think Starfield's coming to PlayStation? You think the next Doom is coming to PlayStation? You think the next Fallout's coming to PlayStation? You think that if Sony signed this deal for Call of Duty, that once that deal's up, you think you're going to see another Call of Duty game on PlayStation? You won't. And Microsoft doesn't fucking care. And Sony knows this. This is bullshit. Everything, I mean, you can make fun of Sony. You can call them Crying Jim, Crying Ryan, whatever you want to call. I get it. Don't get me wrong. Sony is saying some pretty silly stuff themselves. But if you think Sony is in the wrong for fighting this, well, that's the thing. I thought I was literally cheering it on. I'm like, come on, Microsoft, just buy them. Sony, come on, stop, Sony. Stop. I don't want to hear any more crying or complaining. Just let it go. And then I just woke up and I realized, holy shit, you know what? No, we need to be hoping that this gets blocked, because this is not going to be good. This is not going to be good for the industry. And if your best argument you can put towards me is, well, I bet you'd say it was good if Sony was doing it, then I don't even know why you're part of this conversation. Because Sony's not doing it. Sony has never done it. You know, it's just Microsoft. Again, I need to remind everybody, Microsoft is not a stranger to third-party exclusivity deals. Microsoft is not a stranger to this. But the reality is, Microsoft was never able to get as many exclusivity deals for their platform because their platform was not as successful as Sony's. Their platform struggled in Japan, still struggles in Japan. That's not Sony's fault. That's Microsoft's fault. That's their fault. And so now, their way of correcting that is, well, we'll just fucking buy everything. That's pathetic. I'm sorry, dude. Like, I'm not sorry. Like, people can cheer it on all they want. People can talk about how, oh, well, you know, look, I get it. Sony fans have been quite obnoxious to a degree for the past, probably, I'd say 5 years, because of how good Sony's games are and how, like, come on, I'm not going to sit here and pretend that the PlayStation fan base showed Microsoft fans and the Xbox One any mercy. So I get it. Like, I get that there's going to be people who are laughing and like, yeah, bet you didn't see this coming. Oh, how do you feel now that they're competing? And it's like, okay, sure, I guess. If this is how you have to compete, thought MVG didn't console war. Dude, this is not console warring. This is so far beyond the console war. I actually would prefer the console war right now. I wish that's what we were talking about. I miss the simpler times of, as stupid as it sounds, like, yo, is the PS5 weaker than the Series X for real? Like, to me, that was more interesting than this, because this is crazy, dude. This is crazy to me how people are just okay with this. Dude, Agent Cooper's like, MVG, you said 13 teraflops. Wrong again. How are you still holding on to that, man? That is funny. I don't even remember that. How long ago was that? That is funny, dude. See, I miss those times. Simpler times. I appreciate that, though, man. I feel like that means you've been here for a while. Josh, you're saying, I hope you got some Xbox slander for me on Christmas morning. yeah, dude. Not my finest hour. I still think it was funny though, dude. People can say what they want. I still think it was funny. And then Josh, again, you're saying if Sony's holding back due to the Microsoft Activision Blizzard deal, that is not good news. These investigation phases take forever, and if a lawsuit is starting to get filed 2024, dude, that's what I'm saying, man. That's like the number one reason why I was advocating for this to just go through, because I guess I just looked at it as, look, I want to see Sony focus on their own stuff. I don't want to see Sony over here stressing out about, oh man, we can't show this because it's going to make us look too good, or man, we gotta push back our showcase, or we can't announce too many exclusives at one time. I get why Sony needs to do that, but I don't know. I think so. My wish with all of this is that I wish Sony would just be truthful. And I wish Microsoft would too. Like, I wish that these corporations with their letters to the CMA would just cut the shit. You know? Because I don't think anybody could honestly say that Sony doesn't have a right to be upset, in the same way that Microsoft doesn't have a right to want this to go through. Like, I don't think that it's too difficult to kind of grasp that Sony has worked to become the market leader in a way that Microsoft could as well, in a way that Nintendo could as well, working within a certain confine. That's what Sony did. That's what Microsoft tried to do. Microsoft couldn't do it. That's what Nintendo did and still does to a degree as well. Microsoft couldn't hang. So now Microsoft is basically saying, like, look, we lost at this game. We were in third place in this game, so we're not playing this game anymore. We're changing the rules and we're making our own game. So it's understandable why Microsoft would want this to go. And I just think it's total nonsense that Sony is coming out here and basically trying to you can't, it feels like it's difficult to blame Sony for downplaying their own exclusivity, because when you have people out here trying to compare the entire purchase of Bethesda or ZeniMax and making all of their games exclusive to, well, that's clearly the same as Sony and their exclusivity deals. This is why Sony has to come out here and sound so hypocritical, because this is what they're going up against. This is the nonsense they're going up against. Meanwhile, you have Microsoft coming out here literally saying Sony's games are better than ours. They're higher quality than ours, and we're just not able to make games that good. And this is where I'm like, what the fuck? Like, dude, you're not supposed to be saying that. You're not supposed to be admitting that. You're supposed to do the opposite. You're supposed to be upset about that and then try to work harder to match that, to improve your quality. Not, but that doesn't mean, well, we suck, so we should just be allowed to buy Activision Blizzard. Like, the fuck? What is going on out here right now, dude? This is crazy. Like, this is crazy to me. And people are like, well, you asked for competition, MBG. Dude, I never asked for this. I never asked for this. If anybody's been following me for a while, you know exactly what I've been asking for. I've been asking to see Microsoft Studios do better. Improve. Hire some better talent. Work some stuff out. Get better management. Something. Like, I never once advocated for this. I never advocated for this on Sony's side, and I never advocated for this on Microsoft's side. And the reason why I would love to see this get blocked right now is very simple. It's not because I care about Call of Duty. I'm not the dude over here being like, no, Microsoft, don't do it. Don't take my Call of Duty away. I mean, I get why some people would feel that way, but that's not how I feel. I don't really, look, I like some Activision Blizzard games, but I'm not going to lose sleep if they're pulled from PlayStation. Like, they're not really a publisher whose games I play a lot of, I want to see this get blocked simply for the fact that this will send a fucking message to everybody involved in the video game industry that turns out you can't just buy your way to victory. Turns out you can't just buy up publishers. That's the message that would be sent to not only Microsoft, but everybody else, including Sony. MBG about to be quoted and featured in Sony's next report about the public perception of the merger. Could you imagine that? Dude, I love how the CMA was like, let's take responses from the public. You're saying Sony did it, so why not Xbox? Okay, Jay, how did Sony do it? Tell me. No, I want to know. How did Sony buy their way to victory? Was it when they bought Sucker Punch in 2011 and molded them over basically a decade to be the studio that created Ghost of Tsushima? Or was it when they bought Naughty Dog during the Crash Bandicoot days and helped mold them into the studio that created The Last of Us? Or was it when they bought Housemarque after years of partnership with them, after helping build them up and get them to where they are? Huh. Or, yeah, maybe Insomniac. Was it when they bought Insomniac and they struck a deal with Marvel? Is that what it is? It's that, isn't it? Bungie? Well, I will tell you, Bungie is the only thing that Sony has that is even remotely comparable to what Microsoft did. But even then, you don't see Sony going over to Microsoft and being like, yo, we'll give you a 10-year deal for Destiny. Does that sound good to you? You don't see Microsoft doing that or Sony doing that. As far as I'm concerned, the purchases that Sony has made were strategic and logical and made sense. Did I bitch about Microsoft buying 5 studios in 2018? Did I? Did I bitch when they bought Ninja Theory? Did I cry when they bought Undead Labs and Playground Games and oh my God, what's the other studio? I can't think of them, but they made We Happy Few, I think. Did I complain about it? No, I didn't. In fact, I'm pretty sure I gave Microsoft a ton of credit. Obsidian, yeah, Double Fine. You know, I'm pretty sure that these studios were studios that I gave Microsoft credit for because I'm like, you know what? This makes a lot of sense. It's a lot at once, but this is strategic. And this seems thoughtful. And this seems like, you know, you're really going to try to double down on your first party output. I never bitched about Microsoft doing anything like that. No, I did. That's not true. I don't know why you're saying I did. I didn't. MVG, why you do Jay like that? You're saying MVG's followers got mad at him, so he changed his tune real quick. No, dude. No one was really mad at me. I mean, first of all, I don't care if people are mad at me. I'm not so focused on, people are mad. What I would focus on is why. Is it like, am I off base? Is there something? And then it turns out that, you know what? My perception or my understanding of the implications of this deal going through were a little bit skewed, I would say. Saying Sony didn't money hat studios, MBG, Sony money had it games like Final Fantasy. But again though, like, is it just Sony that's money hatting games? Or, I'm sorry, was it not already established between Sony, Nintendo, and Microsoft? Was it not already established that there's basically like an unwritten agreement, you know, an unspoken rule that like it's kind of okay to do some third-party deals? Nintendo does them, Sony does them, and Microsoft does them. I mean, look, I understand that people are going to be like, wow, dude, you're really going to get this upset because they're not playing fair or they're not being fair. I don't know what you want me to tell you, man. Like, I'm just trying to give my honest thoughts on, like, yeah, it seems like bullshit to me. It seems like bullshit to me. Like, in the same way that Xbox fans feel like it's bullshit that Final Fantasy VII Remake has still not made its way to Xbox, I get that. You know, like, I actually get that. I understand. Like, that's annoying. Like, if you are somebody who has an Xbox and you really thought that at some point you were going to be able to play that, and Sony's basically just like, nope, we're paying to make sure you can't. I get that. That is fucking annoying. And I would be annoyed if Microsoft did the same thing with let's just say it was Microsoft with Silent Hill. And instead they're like, yeah, you're not going to play this. You're not going to play this on PlayStation. I would be super annoyed. But I would also think, well, Yeah, this is what happens sometimes. Some third-party exclusivity deals, they happen. But I'm sorry, man. I will never be able to look at 1, 2, maybe 3 games over the course of a decade being exclusive to a platform. I will never be able to look at that as the same as Microsoft just bought all of Bethesda, Starfield, Redfall, the next Doom, the next Fallout, the next Elder Scrolls, never coming to PlayStation. Sorry. Not happening. Done. Are you kidding me? Like, are you kidding me? You're really going to try to compare these things? MBG, what would MBG say if it gets blocked and Sony buys it up? Dude, I don't want to see Sony buy anybody. That doesn't make any sense at this point. All right, let me read some of these super chats. I'm getting behind. Some very generous super chats here from William, which we'll get to. Let me see. Hold on, I'm scrolling back here. I'm a little bit behind. I'm actually really behind. Crap. All right. Jerome, you're saying with Sony having to hold all the announcements until next year until the deal goes through, what's the chance of Sony being in E3? I'll tell you this, dude. I know Sony feels like they have to hold their announcements as long as they can. I think the absolute longest Sony could go, in my opinion, is until June. I still don't think they would be part of E3. I don't. I think if Sony were to have a show next June, it would be their own show. I don't think Sony will ever be part of E3 again, Jerome. I don't. I think even if Sony has a really small show, like a 20-minute showcase or like a 30-minute showcase where they really are trying to be scarce about what they show, I still think Sony would do it on their own. But I think it would be around E3 time. Aaron, you're saying if Microsoft wants competition, why do they want Game Pass on PlayStation? Because they don't want competition, dude. That's the biggest red flag in all this. You brought it up. Why would they want if they want competition, why would they ask to put Game Pass? Why would they make it seem like, oh, we want to put Game Pass on PlayStation? They don't want competition. And anybody who believes that for a second is a fool. And don't get me wrong, that goes for Sony as well. Companies don't want competition. They want the literal opposite of competition. That goes for Sony, that goes for Microsoft. Now, Sony has had no problem being aggressive in the gaming world, in the console gaming space towards Microsoft. But Microsoft also had no problem being aggressive towards Sony. And that makes sense. That's competition. They're both trying to beat each other, but there has to be parameters. There has to be boundaries at some point, because if there's no boundaries, then it's like, what happens? Well, we've seen what happens over the decades. We've seen how companies do attempt to monopolize, and they start small and then they go bigger, and make no mistake about it. And I'll give it to you straight. If Sony was as big as Microsoft, they would have already tried to monopolize gaming. But this is where I'm saying we, as the players, got to be really careful about this whole, oh, well, who cares if it's fair or not? Like, no, we need to care. Like, we need to care about where the line is drawn. We need to care about that. Because if there's no line drawn, well, shit's going to get bad, man. For us. Not for Microsoft. Maybe for Sony. I don't know. I mean, I'm telling you, if Sony lost Activision Blizzard, it would be a massive blow, but they'll still be fine. Like, Sony's not going anywhere. PlayStation's not going anywhere. They'll still be fine. It's just like this idea that, like, I know people are so supportive of Game Pass, and that's great. Like, Microsoft needs to give you a good deal to get you in the door, but just this idea that it's like, it's going to stay $10 forever. Like, no, it's not, dude. It's going to go up and up and up, and eventually it's going to turn into Netflix, where people are beginning to question, is this even worth it anymore? How much do I even play on here anymore? You know, like, is Microsoft still producing the good games anymore? It's going to happen. It's going to happen at some point. And I just think people need to be aware that, like, Microsoft isn't paying $68 billion to give you a good deal. Do you understand? Microsoft isn't paying $68 billion to give me or you a good deal. They're paying $68 billion to get us in the fucking door. And then eventually make sure that when it comes to, when it comes to where are you going to play your games, they want it. People just don't want to see it, man. But it's so obvious. It's so painfully obvious. That's the best question so far, dude. Who am I arguing with? I don't even know anymore, bro. I'm just sitting here talking to myself like a crazy person. For those wondering, no, this is not the only topic we're discussing today. Sony raises prices, MBG, everything is fine. Dude, no, Agent Cooper. You can't say that. I've given Sony flack. Man. Let me just say this too real quick. I will say this. There's a difference between the way Sony is approaching this and Microsoft. Dude, Sony, I don't know if people know this or not. It should be pretty clear. The reason why they get so much hate, the reason why people are like, wow, Sony, wow, is because Sony just rips the fucking Band-Aid off. Okay, Sony doesn't sugarcoat it. They're literally like, yo, we're raising the price of our games to $70 because we need to make more money off them because these games are expensive as hell to make. And we need to maintain our profits. That's what Sony says. And people they throw their hands in the air and they're like, what? A company wanting to do a company thing and maintain profitability? What the hell is this? Don't get me wrong. I'm not saying, yes, take more of my money. No. I'm just simply saying, okay, I mean, these games are pretty big and I don't want to see them become less, so $10, okay. Like, I love how people are trying to look. I know it's funny as hell because Sony's like, if Microsoft gets Activision Blizzard this deal, we could see Microsoft raise the prices of things. And it is comical because it's like, Sony, you did that. You raised the price. And then Sony had to explain like, oh, well, we had to raise the price of the PS5 due to inflation and economics and everything. It's like, I think people need to understand that that's not what Sony is saying. Like, Sony's not saying they could raise the price of their console the same way we did. Like, even Phil Spencer just came out and said, yeah, we might have to raise the price of some things. Sony's not using that against Microsoft because Sony understands, just as Microsoft does, that things are getting weird and hairy out here with the economy. And even Microsoft is acknowledging, like, yeah, we may have to make some price adjustments as well. There's a difference between that and between the idea of a company having such a stronghold in a specific segment of a market that they can just do anything they want unchecked because there is no competition. Okay, there's a difference. And I think people failed to understand that. Like, it's not like, it's not the same, dude. All right, let me see. Hicksock, you're saying people eat Phil's we all play BS and don't think. Well, that's the thing, man. It's like, I don't blame gamers. I don't blame people for buying into marketing sometimes. Because if you're a consumer and if you're a gamer and if you are a fan, it's hard not to buy into it. And I get that. Like, I fell victim to it plenty of times where, a company tells you something and you're like, oh, dude, that sounds awesome. And you're just believing and eating up what they're saying. And then at some point you maybe realize not necessarily that it's like terrible or horrible, but maybe you begin to realize like, well, maybe it's not all that, maybe it's not everything they said it was. And I definitely fell for that. Like, I thought it was going to be everything and then some, but maybe, it's not entirely that. I don't blame people, for that. I just think that you have to, I hate to say it, but you have to have a certain level of cynicism You have to. And skepticism, because even for as big of a fan of PlayStation as I am, I don't sit here and look at PlayStation as they care about me. They want to give me a fair deal, fair and square. Like, no, they want as much money from me as they can possibly get, you know? And they're going to do things to get that. My only expectation of a company, of a business that wants my money, it's never to expect them to want less money from me, but it's to expect that whatever it is they're going to do, it has to make sense, it has to seem fair, and it has to seem reasonable. And anytime something seems too good to be true, that's the biggest red flag of them all. Anytime you see a company do something that's like, holy shit, that seems too good to be true, it's because it is. You may not know it yet, but it's because it is. That goes for Sony as well. Severin Evans, you're saying, been a while, MBG. How have you been? Well, I've been good, man. I've been good. Hope you're doing well. Also, God of War Ragnarok is doing well. I wouldn't read too much into that it's successful. Also, exclusivity is exclusivity, man. I guess, I mean, I don't know, though. Is it? I don't think so. I don't agree entirely with that, because, again, it's the difference between if there's a game that's announced for Xbox or for PC or something, you know, places I don't really play, or even Nintendo, and I think the game looks awesome, and it's like, oh, I want to play that, and then they're like, yeah, but it's a year timed exclusive. There's a really, really good chance that I'm going to be like, oh, well, that sucks, but I'll wait then. You know, I'll wait till next year and I'll play it. There's a big difference between that and if it's like, yeah, this is exclusive and it's never coming to any other platform. There's a big difference, because one is going to make me feel like, okay, now I have to go invest in this platform, even though I had no intention of doing so. And the other is giving me at least the option to wait it out. And I feel like I'll be totally honest right now, man. I would love for there to be a rule between Sony, Microsoft, and Nintendo, all video game publishers or platform holders. I would love for there to be a rule that says all third-party exclusives have to be timed. I would love that to be a thing. Like, I don't necessarily, like, I really would not care one bit if tomorrow Square Enix announced we're putting Final Fantasy VII Remake on Xbox. I wouldn't care. I'd be like, okay, like, that makes sense. Like, this game has been available on PlayStation for years now, and anybody who is going to play it already, like, very likely already went to PlayStation to do so. It's just, you know, it's like, I understand the benefit of having a permanent third-party exclusive, but if there's one thing that I will never be against is just platform holders making their own games and just letting that be the driving factor. That to me is the number one thing. That goes for Microsoft, Sony, and Nintendo. And so if there was a rule that was made where the longest period a game could be exclusive if it's third party is a year and a half, then I'd be fine with that. You know, I feel like that's a little bonus if you happen to be the platform it's releasing for first. But you also don't have to worry if you're playing somewhere else that, well, I'm never going to have access to it, you know? Anyway, but no, I hear you, man. I do understand the sentiment behind what you're saying. Space D, you're saying MBG 1 to 2 years later is a dead game, and you know it. Stop being hypocritical. Xbox Simple has way more money to bully around, just like Sony has done. Okay, look, Space D. Surely you understand the difference. And surely everybody understands the difference. I'm going to give you two different scenarios. Scenario one, Microsoft strikes a deal with Bethesda for Starfield and for Redfall to be exclusive to Xbox. And we don't know if it's going to be a timed exclusive. Okay? We don't know. They release, and then we eventually find out that, okay, they were timed exclusivity deals for 1 year, and then they're going to release on PlayStation. Starfield's going to release on PlayStation in 2024, and Redfall will release on PlayStation in 2024, okay? Surely you understand the difference between something like that, or, you know what, let's just say Redfall just stays exclusive. Let's say Starfield's a timed exclusive, Redfall stays exclusive forever. Surely understand the difference between that and Microsoft buying every single IP underneath Bethesda and making it known that these are never going to PlayStation again. Right? Like you have to be able to see the difference in that. One, what you are correct about is, yeah, Xbox is bullying, I guess you could say, Sony around now and Nintendo with this money that they have. But look, I'm just saying, for the people who are advocating, saying that's competition, stop crying, for the people who are saying that, dude, do you know what would happen right now if Sony was a multi-trillion-dollar company like Microsoft? They would be out there, they'd be like, we're buying Square Enix. And after that, we're buying Ubisoft. That's what you want? That's the competition you want? Dude, I don't know, man. I don't know. I think some people don't even know what they're advocating for here. I would never want to see that. And you shouldn't either. You shouldn't ever want to see that. I hate to say it, guys. Well, actually, I don't. But we want to see the regulators step in here. We want to see the government. I hate to say it because I'm not usually like this, but in this case, I think we want to see the government shut this shit down, man, before it gets worse. We do, because I mean, how can you believe that industry consolidation is what's best? I mean, seriously, how could you believe that that's what's best for the industry? It's not. At this point forward, I would be totally okay if just everybody stopped buying anybody, including Sony. Just focus on making your own stuff now. I'm serious, man. This competition that you're advocating for, that's not really competition you're advocating for. Game Pass, if you're saying this is a bad take, would you please care to explain how? Kenny comes in and says, you don't win wars by playing fair, boys. Puts on sunglasses. Yeah, I guess so. Is it competition when Sony has been dominating for decades? Well, the reality is, dude, like, the Xbox, I mean, look, I know Xbox has not been as successful as PlayStation, but why? All Xbox fans tried to tell me for the past decade, and I was actually one of them for a while there, is Xbox is still fine. Xbox is still pretty good. Yeah, Xbox isn't doing the same numbers as Sony. Xbox isn't on the same exact level as Sony, but they're still good. Whatever happened to that? Broccoli Rob, you're saying Microsoft owns 23 first-party studios. Where the F are the games? Broccoli Rob asking the real questions out here. Fabrice. Fabrice, you're saying Xbox CEO wanted to buy Blizzard in 2005. Microsoft didn't want, never try. For monopoly, you need 40% of the market. Nobody can stop them. You know what I think is comical though? Because Fabrice, you just reminded me of this. Like, doesn't anybody else find it kind of strange how for an entire 2 weeks, Phil Spencer and Microsoft were like, no, we're never going to take Call of Duty away from PlayStation. As long as there's a PlayStation console to ship it on, our intent is to never take it off. Our intent is to treat it like Minecraft. How the fuck do they go from 2 weeks just saying that over and over and over again to the next week being like, we'll give you a 10-year deal? Like what? Like what? This is what I mean. It's like, how can anybody sit here and believe a word that Microsoft says? I mean, truly, like, that is some That is some insane, like, just gaslighting at that point. It's called concession. I mean, I get it. It's simply like, look, will this make everybody happy? I get it. But I don't know. I just think it's to me, it's clear that at some point, come on. Like, what did every Xbox fan tell us with Bethesda? Remember what every Xbox fan told us with Bethesda? They said, dude, listen, Microsoft didn't just pay $7.5 billion to keep releasing these games on PlayStation. They didn't pay $7.5 billion to not make these games exclusive. What happened to that rhetoric and that logic? That just doesn't apply here? Oh, but because they're spending $68 billion, that means they now will not make them exclusive? Saying Activision Blizzard is different, too big? I mean, yeah, I think there's an argument to be made there. There's an argument to be made there for sure. But I don't know. I guess I'm just trying to say that this doesn't make Microsoft look good because it's like, oh, well, we'll buy this publisher and we'll make this publisher exclusive. But when we buy this one, we're not going to make it exclusive. It's like, how is anybody supposed to believe you is the point. You know, from Microsoft's standpoint, how is it? And you know, that's, I will say, I think the biggest, thing that will likely hurt, and I think is hurting Microsoft in this area, trying to get this to go through, is the fact that they did buy Bethesda and they did make it clear that these games are going to be exclusive. I think they're regretting that. Because if you think about it, like, that couldn't be used against them if they never did that. Or if they just said that all these games are still going to come to PlayStation. If anything, I think it would make it a lot easier for this to probably go through. But Severin Evans, you're saying, I look at it this way. Also, I would rather PlayStation, Xbox, Nintendo get them than anyone else. I don't want to see Embracer Group, Tencent, Amazon, or Google in it. That I do agree with. That I can agree with, but see, that's the thing here is like, I'm pretty sure that if this were to get blocked, I'm pretty sure that if this merger were to get blocked, I think it would basically spell doom for any future major merger. Like, I don't think that just means that suddenly now Google can come in and buy Activision. I don't think so. I don't know every intricate detail here. But I'm pretty sure it would make it so that like any corporation that was thinking about buying a publisher would be, I think they would be scared to do so. Because the way these things kind of, based off of my understanding, the way it works, I could be wrong, but to me, I get this idea in my mind that when you get the government involved to this extent, and if you're merger or acquisition gets blocked, it's almost like you now have a permanent mark on your company, on your corporation, that will always stick out like a sore thumb. You know, like even if you look at the FTC right now, like one of the reasons why the FTC is being hard on Microsoft is because, you know, they're basically pointing out that, like, hey, Microsoft tried to do this before. You know, like they're not new to this. We've seen what they did, you know, in the 90s and then in the early 2000s. In a different market, of course, but I'm just saying, like, that stuff sticks. Like, the history sticks. It becomes part of their history. So, I mean, look, if it didn't matter, if Microsoft's history in this area didn't matter, then why exactly would Sony? Why is Sony out here basically citing that as a reason why you know, why this shouldn't go through. All right, let me see. Mark Lovin, you're saying, sorry for the change of subject. With Kojima saying how he will be at this year's awards show, what do you think he will show? At this point, I have no idea. I mean, I was going to say it could be the Xbox game, but if it's true that Microsoft is trying to have less of a presence and not show up at the Game Awards because they have the regulators' eyes on them, well, that wouldn't make sense, to have a Kojima show off his exclusive Xbox game. But I feel like Sony's in the exact same boat. So I have no idea, dude. I have no idea. I mean, I'm personally hoping I'm assuming he is I know he's making a project with PlayStation, and it seems like it's going to be Death Stranding 2. I think it would be cool to get the announcement of Death Stranding 2 at the Game Awards. I think it would make sense to get it there. So that's kind of what I'm hoping it is. I don't know that I think that's what it will be, but that's what I'm hoping for. William, you're saying if the deal goes through, Sony will be forced against their better judgment to take a loan from the Bank of Japan, the largest Sony shareholder, to buy EA for Battlefield and then build 3 studios to make Battlefield yearly/bi-yearly. I laugh only because, that would be the most insane shit to ever happen. That would be insane. Wow. I don't know if that's a dangerous loan though, man. I really almost think saying MBG, yes, that could happen. Everybody keeps telling me that Sony could not produce a Call of Duty competitor. Everybody keeps telling me that. But my line of thinking is this. Who says it needs to be a Call of Duty competitor? Because to call it a Call of Duty competitor is to insinuate that it has to be as lucrative and as successful as Call of Duty. And I get that. If Sony were to ever lose Call of Duty, then naturally the thought process is, well, how do we make up for those losses? But I'm almost of the mindset that if in the end Sony does end up, even if it's a decade from now, losing Call of Duty and it just doesn't release on PlayStation anymore, I almost just think to myself, rather than buying EA and trying to buy Battlefield, why not just, I don't know, I'm not saying that a shooter, a multiplayer live service shooter, I'm not saying that a game like that produced by 1 or maybe 2 studios can compete with Call of Duty, but maybe that's okay. That's what I'm trying to say, is maybe it's okay to have your own shooter that's good and competent and relatively successful. It may not be any Call of Duty. It may not be raking in billions, right? But what would be wrong with having a Battlefield-like shooter? Maybe it would require more than one studio, and maybe it would be a bit of a joint effort, but Sony isn't new to this. How many studios helped with God of War Ragnarok? There was 8 studios or something? I mean, I'm just so confused with Sony's side of things here, where it's you have Bungie, for Christ's sake, I'm not saying that Bungie could just overnight create a Call of Duty competitor, but why the hell is this? I mean, look, let's just be honest here. I think Sony right now, William, is evaluating all of their options. They have to. They have to look at worst case scenario, they have to look at best case scenario, and they have to look at everything in between. And I guess I'm just wondering, what exactly is the in between here, or the worst case scenario? I'm sure Sony is ready to try. I know they are. They're making 12 live service games, for God's sake. Sony is ready to try, but they don't want to have to if they don't have to. And that's the thing. Because I see a lot of people saying that it doesn't matter what Sony does, doesn't matter even if the FTC files a lawsuit, this is going through. This is going through. And I guess I'm just sitting here thinking like, I mean, to think that Sony isn't preparing for a worst case scenario, I think would be foolish to think, because of course they are. What would you be doing right now if you were Sony? You would be crunching the numbers, looking at how much you stand to lose, and then thinking, if we end up losing this, how do we mitigate the damage? What do we do? And what you're saying, William, the idea that that Sony would take a massive loan from the Bank of Japan to do something like that, I mean, that would be very interesting to see. That would be very interesting because I will say, dude, even though that seems like, to me, William, what you're saying, to me, that just automatically makes me go, no way. Sony wouldn't do that. But a part of me is, I'm going to see, look, this is where it gets tough for me. A part of me is advocating for what Sony's doing here, where Sony is like, we need to push back against this. We need to stop this. We need to try. A part of me is advocating for that because I understand Sony is a business, PlayStation is a business, and this is what they have to do. This is what they have to do. But I got to tell you guys, I am just so fascinated by the idea of what does Sony look like and what do they do next when the day comes, if the day comes, let's say sometime next year. The announcement is made, Microsoft comes out, the press release, the images, the fans all over. It's done. It's gone through. Activision Blizzard is now officially owned by Microsoft and a part of the Microsoft family. I seriously wonder, what does Sony do then? Because I just get this feeling that Sony is not happy. And I mean, really, really, really not happy. I'm not saying they will be reactionary in an emotional way. They're a corporation. They're professionals. But I'm just saying, like, I don't know, man. It's almost enticing as a PlayStation fan to just kind of imagine a Sony. I don't want to say with their back against the wall. And I'm going to move on after this, guys. I'm going to read the remainder of the super chats and I'm going to move on. But I just want to say, like, not a Sony with their back against the walls and like they're about to die and it's sink or swim. That's a bit too extreme. But I just cannot help but wonder, like, could we get a better Sony, a better PlayStation without Call of Duty? And I understand that that's a crazy notion because Call of Duty is so popular. And I was like laughing with my video yesterday because I love how Microsoft's like, Call of Duty doesn't determine what console people buy. Like, come on, man. Microsoft, I get you got to say what you got to say, but you got to know that how stupid that sounds. Of course it does. Of course it does. Maybe less today, I will admit. Maybe less today. But it always has been it always has. That's like saying if Madden is exclusive to one console, that's not going to determine. Of course it is. Like, you just got an entire audience just like that, Yeah, or FIFA or something like that. It would be crazy. So we'll see, William. I mean, I would not like to see that. I have to admit, I would not want to see Sony's reaction to losing Activision Blizzard be like, we have to buy our own now, because that would be the opposite of what I'm advocating for. I want to see less consolidation, not more. But if that's the way it's got to go, I mean, that would be a very interesting turn of events, wouldn't it? True Whittier saying, so Microsoft can't compete with a pub and more studios. Um, I mean, look, I think personally, I would have drawn the line at Bethesda. You know, like I look at it as Microsoft already has a certain amount of internal studios. They bought like 7 or 8 independent studios, and then they bought Bethesda. And I would have thought to myself that, okay, that now you guys are set. What more could you need? Right? Like, you guys are set. But that's the thing that shocked me, is they're just like, no, we're not set. We now need all of Activision Blizzard as well. It's like, what? To me, this is the one that's taking it too far. Because I really would have thought that, Microsoft is in the best position they could be in now that they bought Bethesda. And it doesn't get any bigger than that, but I was wrong. It does get bigger than that. Manolis L. Hopefully I said your name correctly. You're saying, why a $1 trillion company doesn't make timed exclusive games? Who stops them from doing it? They choose not to. How is that Sony's fault? Well, that's the thing about this. You bring up a really interesting thing here where, you asked the question, well, if Sony is able to afford these timed exclusivity deals, what is stopping Microsoft? If they have all this money, why couldn't they just do that too? I think it's simply because it comes down to profitability. And Sony has worked really hard over the decades to refine their business, to refine their gaming business and the PlayStation business, to get it to a point where it's profitable, and it becomes a little bit more profitable each year. That's the goal of all businesses. And when Sony would cut a deal for third-party exclusivity, it was with that in mind. It was with, okay, we can afford to pay this amount for this third-party exclusivity deal, and still, make a profit. They set aside a certain amount of money. Microsoft has to do the same thing as well. But the problem is, Microsoft, because they decided that they wanted to enter the gaming market back in 2001 and compete against Sony, they were already kind of behind. And they, over the past 2 decades, Microsoft as a company has dumped so much money into the Xbox division in the hope that it will eventually become profitable. And it, as far as I'm aware, it just never became profitable. And I just think that it kind of got to a point where, when Phil Spencer was talking to Satya Nadella, it's like, look, you could give us more money to buy more third-party deals. We're not going to own the game, and they're not going to be permanent. Or you could just give us all the money, and we'll just buy it. What, basically, Microsoft decided that they're going to take it a couple steps further. They're not going to buy timed exclusivity. They're not going to buy third-party deals. They're just literally going to buy third-party publishers. I mean, from a logical standpoint, it makes sense. But it's also kind of really fucking things up to a degree. So, True Whittier saying, so buying up the industry is competition. So sad. That's what I mean, dude. It doesn't add up to me. Like, I don't know, man. Microsoft went from buying studios that they could mold and improve and add to their portfolio and catalog in 2018 to now, and this is the Game Pass effect. I told you guys, this isn't about beating Sony. I wonder if people know that. I know a lot of people think this is about Microsoft stomping. It's actually not. Microsoft isn't worried about beating Sony. Microsoft is worried about Game Pass. And maybe in that sense, if I'm sure Microsoft still does look at Sony as a threat in the Game Pass area, because I've always told people, all Sony has to do is put their exclusive games day and date on the PlayStation Plus. Put PlayStation Plus on PC, on everywhere you can, just like Game Pass, and you're going to see it blow up in a good way. Like, it's going to grow really fast. And there you go. There's your Game Pass competitor. But, Sony's not going to do that. And so I just think that what Microsoft is doing is they're not trying to beat Sony. They just want to beat everyone to the punch. That's the point with Game Pass. Microsoft is so desperate to establish themselves with Game Pass in such a far lead that no one can catch Game Pass. That's the point. And that's what they're doing. And that's why they want Activision Blizzard. And that's why I do believe, in the end, I do believe that Microsoft will keep Call of Duty on PlayStation for a very, very long time. I do, because this isn't about anything other than we need to grow Game Pass. We need to get Game Pass to 50 million subs, and then eventually we got to get it to 80 million, and then eventually to 100. And by the time we get to 100 million, our main competitor might not even be Sony at that point. But assuming it's Sony, assuming Sony feels like they have to compete with Game Pass in a more aggressive way, Sony could be well behind that, man. You know, but that would require Sony completely uprooting their own business model, and Microsoft seems to not be too worried about Google or Amazon. And that's what's weird to me is like Microsoft said that Google, Amazon, you know, these are the big companies, Meta, that they're worried about. But none of these companies have showed any remote interest in creating a Game Pass competitor. In fact, the only two platform holders, or I guess maybe Valve too, those, you know, Nintendo, Sony, these are really the only platform holders that really could actually viably create a Game Pass competitor, and they're not really. Even with what Sony's doing with PlayStation Plus Extra and Premium, it's still not quite there. But Microsoft just seems so, I don't know. I think ideally what Microsoft gets in the end, I'll tell you how Microsoft wins, and then I promise I'm going to move on after reading the super chats because I know this is going on long. This is how Microsoft wins. Microsoft continues to grow Game Pass over the next 10 years. 10 years from now, they get Game Pass. I don't know. Let's just say the shit just shoots up. Okay, they get it to like 60, 70 million subscribers. Maybe even 80. Something crazy like that. All right. Microsoft wins by getting to that point and having so many studios, having so many IP just constantly dumping into Game Pass that it eventually erodes Sony's business model. Or at the very least, it erodes the Sony and Nintendo business model to a degree in which now the only way Sony and Nintendo can survive is by following Microsoft and making their own Game Pass competitor. But by the time Sony and Microsoft end up doing that, Microsoft is laughing because it's like, well, what are you going to put in your service? You see what I'm saying? Like that's what this is about. And that's what Microsoft is trying to do. And Sony's not stupid. Of course Sony sees this. I don't think Nintendo gives a shit because Nintendo is pretty convinced that we can do whatever we want as long as we want. We're playing our own game over here. And Sony's really the one caught in between where, yeah, Sony will always have their own exclusives, but it's not God of War that's selling 10 million copies in 3 days. It's not God of War that's going on to sell 45 million copies or whatever absurd number it is like Nintendo is. Nintendo's fine, dude. They don't need third parties. They really don't. Not in any significant way. Sony does. Sony needs third parties just as much as they need their exclusives. And I know that there are PlayStation fans that think that that's not true, but it is. And, you know, the reason why Microsoft is like, let's put Game Pass on PlayStation is because what Sony said about Microsoft wanting them to become like Nintendo is true. It's true. Because if Sony becomes like Nintendo, it means they shrink. Not that Nintendo shrinks. It means Sony shrinks. Because Sony's games are not doing the same things, the same type of heavy lifting that Nintendo's games are, for one reason or another. Sony has a very intricate balance between first party, second party, and third party. And what Microsoft is doing right now is eating into Sony's third party in a massive way. and it is to hurt them. It is to hurt them. So, the number one reason why Microsoft would want Game Pass on PlayStation is because the day that Sony puts Game Pass on PlayStation is the day that Sony says, we'll never compete with Game Pass. And that's exactly what Microsoft wants. And I hate all of this because I don't want Game Pass. I don't want Sony. I don't want Sony to follow that model. I mean, I almost would rather see Sony lose third parties and just continue to, focus on their first party. I don't want that model. You want Game Pass installed in your bathroom? Well, keep following Microsoft, man, because eventually that's going to happen. They're going to start selling Xbox branded toilets with Game Pass built into it. William Aglord, thank you so much for the generous donation, man. That's very kind of you. I seriously appreciate your support each week, man. I appreciate everybody's support, but you've been donating a lot, and I just wanted to know it does not go unnoticed. I really appreciate it, man. So you're saying massive risk and an unfathomably large debt, but it would be life or death for them, plus sports games, the only ones that compete with COD sales, Madden and FIFA, plus probably another loan to buy Take-Two in order to own Zynga mobile games to compete with King Mobile. Well, see, that's the thing, dude. There would be so much to gain for Sony. If in the end, Sony was like, we have to make a play for EA, even if it puts us in a dangerous amount of debt. But it really, yeah, I mean, it kind of does. I could see why Sony would feel like they're that shook, because it's one thing if you lose ZeniMax and Bethesda, right? It's another thing when you lose ZeniMax, Bethesda, and then lose Activision Blizzard. So Sony wants to be a main player. Sony is the main player. And I mean, I gotta admit, dude, that it would be crazy. And I think if Sony did that, though, I think people would hate Microsoft after that. I do. I absolutely do, because right now, for anybody who's cheering on this deal for Activision Blizzard, I don't think many people really actually kind of thought like, well, if this goes through, what do you think Sony might try to do? And if Sony were to pull something like that off, I don't know, dude. I don't know the numbers. I'm not a number cruncher like that. I don't know if it's possible for Sony to buy EA. I mean, I think I've heard, from what I've heard, apparently Sony could technically buy anybody, but it's just a matter of, if they, like, the risk is so immensely high that it's like you're saying, it's basically do or die, life or death. And it puts Sony in a very tricky position where it's like, you either do this and you're all in, you're going to live or die by this acquisition, or you don't, and you may lose it one day to somebody else, but you'll still survive, no matter what. You'll just be a lot smaller. And I could kind of see Sony being like, you know what? Fuck this. Like, we're not just going to let Microsoft be by themselves to be the biggest player. We're Sony, like we've earned this. We're going to, and then I could see them making a play for that. And I'm telling you now, dude, if Sony were to ever managed to, you're saying if COD is approved, regulators would let Sony have EA. Yeah, I do wonder about that. Like I almost wonder, at what point though does it stop? But dude, people would be so pissed if Sony did that though, because, well, I'm not saying games like Madden or FIFA would be exclusive, because they couldn't. Sony could never make a purchase like that and ever make games like that exclusive. It would kill them. It would just straight up kill them. So they would remain multi-platform, but I have to imagine that certain studios underneath Sony, if Sony ended up owning EA, like I could see something like Dead Space Remake, like, oh, that'll be exclusive to PlayStation. Battlefield, possibly, maybe. Maybe. But the big hitters will stay multi-platform. So I guess, I don't know, man. You do just have to wonder. Oh yeah, and they got Star Wars too. That would remain multi-platform, I think, for sure. You do just gotta wonder if this is how it all ends up shaking out in the end. Microsoft gets Activision Blizzard. Sony's going to be extremely pissed off about that. And Sony, Call of Duty could stay on PlayStation for the next 10 years after that. But Sony's not going to, they're not going to rely on Call of Duty anymore. They're not. So Sony will absolutely be thinking, like, what do we do now? And just this idea that they could try to make a massive acquisition of their own would be fucking crazy and interesting. But I don't know, man. I think people would be pissed at Microsoft at that point because they would feel like, wow, Microsoft, you did this. You forced Sony's hand. Anyway, and I hope it doesn't divulge into that type of chaos. Like, I hope it doesn't get to a point where it's like, well, fuck it. We've tried to prevent war. We tried to not go to war. We didn't advocate for war, but war is coming anyway. So screw it, pick a side and pick up your, I don't know, pick up your keyboard. I don't know. But dude, yeah, that's some interesting insight, William. We'll see. Yeah, Ragnarok is coming, guys. Ragnarok is coming in the gaming industry. So yeah, William, again, thank you so much for the generous donations and the insight's certainly interesting, man. And I gotta admit, like, you bringing that up, I didn't even consider that. I've been talking this whole time about this, and I didn't even take a second to consider, like, Sony maybe doing something like that. So thank you, man. I appreciate your support each week. True Witty, you're saying the real problem is where does it stop, MBG? That's a great question, dude. I do think you're absolutely right in that. Is where does it stop? Because that's the thing, is I was under the impression that if Microsoft does get Activision Blizzard, then it stops. It just stops. But then I didn't take a second to think that, well, actually, no, it might ramp up even further. Because Microsoft having Activision Blizzard scares everybody. It scares everybody, especially Sony. And so it probably ramps up even further. And I guess maybe the hope is that if it does get blocked, then this is where it stops. At least major acquisitions like this. And I'm not against that. I'm not against that. Jacob, you're saying Killzone reboot RPG like Starfield would be cool. That would be interesting. An RPG based in the Killzone universe. Now that would be fascinating. I mean, Guerrilla could do that now. They have the expertise. I don't know if it would be a shooter though, necessarily, like a first-person shooter, only because I think most of the first-person shooter talent at Guerrilla Games left once they started really working on Horizon. But that would be interesting. Josh, you're saying Microsoft is so dirty, bro. They monopolized many industries in the past and suffocated said industry. Not the first time they've been under investigation for this. But that's what I'm saying, dude. That's why, I again, like, not to keep going on, but just finishing up with these super chats. People talk shit about Sony and they're making fun of Sony, but it's like, that's what Sony's pointing out. Like what Jim Ryan said is actually the truth, in that Microsoft has a history of being a tech giant that attempts to monopolize different industries. And I just think I know it's like funny, like, oh, Jim Ryan, shut up. But it's like, he's pointing out the truth. Like, that's probably the most true thing that's been said this whole time. And we'll see, man. We'll see if surely the regulators know this, So I think Microsoft has a fight on their hands, and I'm worried. I'm actually worried how long this might go on for, truthfully, because I don't think Sony's backing down, dude. Xbox already said they're getting more studios after ABK. It does not stop. That's true. They did say that, didn't they? Man, the Stones on Phil Spencer, the Stones on Microsoft. I hate that shit, dude.
The fans love it though. Like truthfully, the fans, like the fans who are really there at the core, they love that arrogant shit. You know, I mean, PlayStation fans were cheering on Sony when they were arrogant too, but you know, humility is important in all things, and we must remember that. True Whittier's saying, let it go through and Sony will go after Square Enix. Dude, I don't know, man. I think what William said was interesting because I feel like Square Enix would be the most logical step, but I think Sony, like, maybe Sony would go after somebody unexpected, you know? Because I don't think Sony's worried about Square Enix. I think Sony feels as though they have such a good relationship and standing with Square Enix that's not. I don't think they are a publisher that Sony fears losing per se. Wow, William with another very generous donation, man. Thank you. I'll get to that in just a moment. This is My Revolution says, hey, MBG, I've been a fan for a while, but your third-party rule can't work because if they build a game for PS5, the chances of it working on Series S may not work. The X, however, will. Make sense? No, that makes sense, dude. That definitely makes sense. And, you know, I guess it would be strange if you think about it, because if Sony were to strike well, let's use Silent Hill 2 Remake, for example. Like, that's going to release on Xbox likely a year later. And that's a game that is currently being optimized for the PS5, but I have no doubt they are basically, Bloober Team is making sure that game can run on the Series S. It's going to have to. If they want it to release on Xbox, it's going to have to run on the Series S. So I think, yeah, guys, I think the Series S is here to stay until the next generation. I don't think it's going anywhere. And I think if there's any chance a game is going to go to the Xbox platform, any chance at all, they're going to create that game with the Series S specifications in mind. But, you know, a lot of these third-party games, even the ones that do end up as timed exclusives, they are developed for PC as well. So, you know, there's always going to be a bit of scale. I mean, let's face it, dude. Most of Sony's games at this point are now being developed with PC in mind. So the scalability is there regardless. But it does make sense what you're saying, man. Aaron Yogurt, you're saying Disney ruined Star Wars and Marvel. Surely Microsoft isn't going to ruin Bethesda and Activision Blizzard. Well, you know, that's another aspect that I haven't even talked about, and I've seen quite a few people express that concern where they're like, you know, is everybody just assuming that these games are going to be better off in Microsoft's hands under Microsoft's management? And I've seen people saying that they predict that if this goes through, this is where COD ends. That in the next 5 years, COD is going to basically go down the drain. And I'm like, well, yeah, I guess we just didn't really consider that, you know? I mean, there is something to be said where why exactly is Microsoft buying these studios and these publishers? Oh, right, that's because they couldn't really produce their own stuff. You know, I see people still kind of talking shit on Halo Infinite, and it's like Microsoft had one of the biggest players in the game, shooter-wise, and they dropped the ball so badly. It shattered, it popped or whatever, you know? It's like, I don't know. I mean, but the thing is, the way Microsoft wants to run it is we're going to buy you and then you just do your thing. And we're just going to take your thing. And when you're done doing what you need to do, that's I think the difference here. So we'll see. But yeah, some people are definitely concerned about that. By the way, guys, please hit that like button for me. If you're enjoying the podcast, you want to support the show in any way you can, just hit that like button. Only takes a moment. Jerome, you're saying, I've been around since PlayStation was the new kid on the block with the PS1, and they were always the market leader. PS1, PS2, there was no hard work. Wouldn't mind seeing a new market leader and how it will affect Sony. Yeah, and Jerome, I actually am in agreement with that. Like, I want to see Sony not too comfortable. But the only thing that's concerning to me here is it's not that Microsoft is seemingly wanting to get serious. I like that Microsoft is all in with Xbox. I do like that. But the thing that concerns me is the fact that it's Microsoft's way of being super serious about Xbox is by completely changing the business model that has worked since the beginning. It's worked for Nintendo. It's worked for Sony. It's even worked for Microsoft at certain points in time. And this is the game. This is the model that has produced the games from Sony that we've come to love the most. And the fact that that's being threatened to a degree is what's nerve-wracking to me. So, that to me is why it's like I do want to see Sony uncomfortable. Like, I'll put it to you this way: I wish that right now this conversation was, holy shit, dude, Microsoft just released, I don't know, a new IP, a new AAA IP from the Coalition, or, maybe from like Obsidian, or just somebody, like a new AAA single player IP from Playground Games, whatever, one of their studios, and it's like sitting at a 90 or 91 on Metacritic, and it's selling really well, and people are buying it at full price. I would love to see something like that, because then I'm like, oh shit, Sony's definitely paying attention to that and thinking, we got to make sure we can make our games, compete with that or be better than that. You see what I'm saying? Like, that, to me, this is where the massive disconnect is with this whole conversation, where that's not at all what Microsoft is doing. It's not. And I just, you're saying those days are long gone, man. Xbox has made sure that they'll never chart. Yeah, I mean, I know that those, I'm not saying we couldn't get some good single player games from Microsoft, and maybe even ones that could be surprisingly good, but it's just like, I guess, yeah, you're right. The days of that business model within Xbox are long gone, and I don't know. I just kind of wish it didn't go this way, because I don't know. I don't know. Maybe I'm just too old school, but I don't even think it's old school. It's just the model that Microsoft is doing isn't proven, man. It's not. It's not. I know people are saying it's the future and everything. You could say whatever you want about it. It's not proven. Like, it's just not. And Sony's games couldn't work on a model like that, simply put. So I don't know. Fabrice, you're saying, whatever happens to Sony, I am not sorry for what Microsoft will do to them for the next 10 years. Damn. You wanted to try to stop $73 billion. They have the best lawyer in the world, and a better case, it's war. Yeah, I've seen people express that as well too, man. Like, I've seen people basically say, like, Microsoft may, they're only trying to play nice right now because they desperately need to look good, and they need to let this go through. So they're playing nice with Sony. But if this goes through, some people are speculating that Microsoft is going to drop the hammer on Sony. To really, especially because Sony's, such a thorn in their side right now, and that I'm sure Sony is prepared for that as well. Like, I'm sure that when this is all over, it's getting pretty brutal out there, pretty nasty. I'm sure that they're both going to hate each other even more, and we're going to see that. Like, I think we're going to clearly see the disdain on public display between Sony and Microsoft, because right now Sony is making it clear that they think Microsoft are basically assholes, and Microsoft is trying really hard to be like, no, we're not who you think we are. We're the good guy. We're nice. And they have to do that to please regulators. But as soon as this goes through, dude, oh my God, you're going to see Microsoft probably rip into Sony in so many different ways, I would imagine. I mean, yeah, I know that it's all about being professional, but these are people at the end of the day that are making these decisions and running these companies. So it will be interesting, man. Beezer1138, you're saying, thoughts on Apple possibly buying Disney soon? Oh my God. Is that even a thing? I don't think that could happen. Could that happen? That sounds like well beyond anything that we've discussed. My thoughts on it, man, I don't know. I don't even know where to begin. Like, I don't know. Is that, I haven't heard a thing about that. Apple buying Disney. Yeesh. Yeah, I don't know about that, man. I don't know. Saying Google it, it's real. How could that even happen though? Truthfully, like I feel like that's a little like, doesn't Disney already own pretty much everything? That's so weird. Just a rumor, not real. MBG got everyone worried. We'll see. Well, I don't know. I don't know what's gonna happen, man. I don't know what's gonna happen. One sec. Sorry, guys. Gotta check this real quick. All right. Just getting like a bunch of notifications. Severin, you're saying if they had a case to block the deal, it would be blocked already. They can stall it until June to make a case, but if they don't buy, then it passes. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing is like, it does seem like this is really going on for a long time, and I still think it's going to go through. I do. I still think it's going to go through, and I guess what I'm wondering is like, what Sony hopes to achieve or to extract out of this by basically still fighting this hard. Because, you know, you have to wonder, does Sony really truly believe, and like their lawyers and everybody they're consulting with, do they really believe that like we may actually be able to get this blocked? Like we may be able to influence this enough to get it blocked. I feel like that's not going to work. I really do. Only because it's like, I get, like I'm saying, if the regulators and for any country, if they end up blocking it, I don't think it's going to be because of Sony's influence, is what I'm trying to say. So I don't know, man. Saying MBG not really takes time to build a case. Also, the FTC are building a case to block it. I mean, look, at the end of the day, when I start to get very tired of talking about this, which I am right now, and I'm sure many of you are tired of hearing about it because I've talked about it for way too long. At the end of the day, the only thing that I begin to hope for is, please, Sony, like, just don't make it so that you're going to not do anything until this is finished, because that would suck so much. You know? That would suck so much. Yeah, that's true. You're saying check VGC's report. Sony did claim they are confident it will be blocked. Yeah, I guess that says it all then, man. I'm so torn with all of this because I understand why Sony's doing what they're doing. I understand, but man, I just wish that they wouldn't let this interfere with their decision to talk more about games that they have in the works and exclusives, because that's the thing that I don't like about this, is where it's like, Sony, come on, man. Like, don't hide it. Don't hide it. If you, like, I guess what I'm trying to say is if you feel the need to hide it, then clearly you're validating the other side by doing that. You know what I mean? Like, you're validating the other side. And if Sony is confident in what they're saying, if Sony's confident in their belief that this is, no, this is really bad, and it's just, you know, Microsoft's trying to monopolize and all this stuff, then it's like, that shouldn't stop you from wanting to have a showcase and announce your own stuff, you know? Because by doing that, you're basically confirming the other side's arguments. Well, I mean, I guess maybe not, because it's like, if we don't show you, you don't know it exists. To whereas if they do just announce it, then you're explicitly showing, like, what? You're accusing us of exclusivity deals? Proceeds to announce multiple exclusivity deals, but that's just it, dude. I'm telling you now, Sony isn't afraid to make announcements. Think about this. Sony isn't afraid to make announcements. They're afraid to build hype. Because Sony's made multiple announcements since this thing happened. Right? Sony's announced Silent Hill 2 Remake. They announced Rise of the Ronin. They've had another Final Fantasy 16 trailer. I'm sure there's something else. They've been showing off VR2 games and stuff. And I'm sure there's something else I'm forgetting. But I'm just saying, like, it's pretty clear that Sony will make the announcements, but they will try very hard to not make a massive spectacle that builds a ton of hype. Stellar Blade, yeah, like, so I guess that makes sense. You're saying you can't build hype and have no consoles on shelves. They'll absolutely market again next year. We'll see. I feel like Sony probably just thinks all we need to do is show a new Spider-Man trailer. And they're probably right. PlayStation Pete, you're saying bought Sonic for $60, Gotham Knights for $90. I think both of them combined beat the main story. Will platinum Gotham. Yeah, I saw that Gotham Knights was already on sale, man, for like what, $40 or something. So you got both for about $90. Which I guess maybe sounds like you got Gotham Knights for $30. That's a good deal, dude. That's crazy. See, that's crazy. The game isn't even a month old, and it's on sale. Damn. Yeah, you'll have to let me know how, I don't know, man. Like, did Sonic do well? I haven't been paying attention. Did Sonic do well? I did see that it was already on sale as well. But yeah, I keep forgetting too, like, you know, Black Friday just passed, so it's a good time to pick up your games. Top Shot, you're saying Microsoft wants to bankrupt Sony out of the market. After this, yeah, they probably do. William, again, thank you, man. I really appreciate your generous donations, my friend. They mean a lot. You're saying most people don't know this, but I'll let you in. Sony had a dev conference last month about gaming tech in the industry, and Nintendo was invited as a guest, and they came. If the worst case scenario happens for Sony, you put 2 and 2 together. You're getting William, dude, you're getting too crazy up in here. William's getting too excited. William's like, you're gonna see Sony and Nintendo unite. That sounds like a movie, bro. That sounds like some kind of movie where Sony and Nintendo are gonna unite forces to take on the evil giant corporate Microsoft. I mean, I don't know, man. I don't know about this conference. Sounds a little too good to be true. But we'll see, man. I mean, these are unprecedented times. I think that's something we could all agree on. And I think that this is the best place to end this specific topic, is that, you know, these are unprecedented times in the gaming industry, and we don't know. You're saying Sony hosted the conference and they've invited Nintendo. It's public knowledge. Is it? That's interesting, dude. I must have completely missed that. I mean, it makes sense. You know, it makes sense to a degree. I don't think Sony and Nintendo are that, you know. I don't think they're enemies in that way anymore. They used to be, but I don't think so anymore. But that's where I'll end this really, really long topic. I mean, look, I know it was a long topic, and I know some people get tired of hearing it, but I thought it was a good conversation. I enjoyed having this conversation about Activision Blizzard with you and Sony and the whole ins and out. But it's unprecedented territory, man. We don't know what's going to happen next. And I think that if there was ever a time where, you know, it's safe to say, like, we just can't really predict what could happen next, what moves could be made next, it's right now. It's right now, and I think it's going to be in the coming months as well. I think it's going to stay that way. So hit that like button, guys. We have over 580 people here. Hit that like button. We should be able to crush 300 likes, no problem. Strong Jawline Herman. Nice name. Understand that reference. Evil West is your game of the year. Yeah, I was thinking about playing Evil West, but now I'm so close to... I'm still trying to platinum God of War. I'm getting closer to that. Taking my time with it now. But, you know, I was going to try Evil West, and I thought that this would happen, and it is happening, where the Callisto Protocol is too close now, dude. It's too close. So I have no choice but to hold out on it, or hold off, I mean. So a lot of people, or some people are asking me if I'm going to move on to Ragnarok, the spoiler discussion. We are going to do that. So give me 1 second to put up. Oh, wow, that's really large. I got to put up the text here. Geez, that's really obnoxious. I'm gonna have to shrink that. I think I could put it like in the right hand corner here. See, that's big enough, right? Yeah, that's good. So yeah, anytime we have a spoiler discussion, I think it would be good to just kind of have this up here like this, so people know if you didn't beat it. There you go. Can I change the color though? I feel like I should be able to change the color. Color. I'll do red. I feel like red makes most sense. Okay, there we go. Spoilers warning is up now, so you don't have to worry about it. But now, yes, I want to dive into God of War Ragnarok. I was dying to talk about spoilers last week regarding this game. But I held off on it because I promised people at the beginning that I wouldn't. Justin, you're saying, "Hey BG, love the videos. What's your favorite game ever?" That's such an impossible question to answer, dude. Just off the top of my head, Dark Souls 1. There's Dark Souls 1, Metal Gear Solid 1 through 4. I think 4 is probably, I don't know. I'm always tied between. Oh, thank you. I was always tied between. Sorry guys, my wife just brought me in some goodies here. I got some. I think these are almonds. They're like peppermint almonds. Candy cane almonds. So she probably didn't know that I brought in the Twix, but that's okay because now I've doubled up. But yeah, dude, favorite game. I don't know. I'm tied between MGS 3 and 4 and Dark Souls 1. Those are some of my favorite games, but I mean, I don't know. Bloodborne's up there for me as well. I mean, God of War 2018 is one of my favorite games of all time. There's a lot, dude. There's quite a few. I'm sure there's others as well. But God of War Ragnarok spoilers. Yeah, The Last of Us. True. Yeah, that's one of my favorites as well. Strong Jawline Herman. I love that name. Did you cry at the end of Ragnarok like me? Dude, I gotta admit, there were multiple times throughout Ragnarok where I don't know, man, I was tearing up a little bit. I'm like, damn, this is hitting me harder than I thought it would. And yeah, so where to begin here? Okay, so the big twist with God of War Ragnarok is Tyr is Odin. And you want to hear the craziest shit? I could not believe this. Afterwards. Where, dude, did you know that the developers actually put something really, really subtle in the game to signify that this was fake Tyr? And you can actually find real Tyr after the game. And I did find real Tyr. He's actually locked up in Niflheim, I think. And it's not even the accent. It's if you look at the subtitles, the real Tyr has the little comma above his name. The fake Tyr, aka Odin pretending to be Tyr, is missing the little comma. Yeah, the accent above the Y. And I was like, bro, there's no fucking way they did that. That is crazy. And you may think to yourself, oh, well, I guess that doesn't matter because if you don't find the real Tyr till the end of the game, then you would never know. Not true, actually. If I'm not mistaken, at earlier times in the game, when people reference Tyr, like when another character is referencing Tyr, you get the accent above the Y and you see it. To whereas anytime Tyr talks, it's missing it. And it's like, I really wonder if anybody caught that. Yeah, and Brock died, man. Yeah, all right. Can we talk about Sindri? Now, I look at all the performances in this game. Holy shit, dude. Holy shit. I don't know who the actor is who played Sindri, but next level. This man needs to be nominated for Performer of the Year because I was so impressed. I did not expect Brock to die, but I definitely didn't expect Sindri to just like basically he just is a new person now, a different person. Yeah, he's broke, man. He was completely broken. And you know what shocked me the most? And I was referencing this last week. I kept saying that there seems to be something that wasn't wrapped up after the main story that I was very surprised about. And you guys are saying play the side missions. And the thing that I at the time I was really confused, not confused, but I was like, holy shit, I'm really shocked, is they didn't patch things up between Atreus and Sindri. And Sindri remained like hateful. I mean, I'm not even gonna say he's not even mad. He like hates Atreus now. And I thought that by the time the game, like the main story ended, I thought that they were gonna do something to kind of mend that, but they didn't. Yeah, that there is no we. And I was just like, holy shit. And then you go to the funeral for Brock, and Sindri does show up, and I thought to myself, like, oh, okay, this is where, yeah, now I get it. This is where Atreus is going to show up, and they're gonna make up and become friends again, and it doesn't, dude. And you know what it made me realize is because there are so many sections in this game that you play as Atreus, and I'm going to talk more about that. It's so clear that Atreus or Loki is going to have his own game. It's so clear. And I think Sindri is going to play a really big part in it. They left that open. They left quite a few things open for Loki. And, you know, dude, there's just so much to talk about. It's hard to keep on track, but MBG, did you see the video with the director of Ragnarok about the man in the bridge? I think I did, where it's like you can actually spot Odin disguised as a dwarf as you're entering Svartalfheim. If you look close enough, I think I did see that. Atreus just needs the blades. Dude, yeah, and he like spits on them. So there's just so much to unpack with this game. And I'm letting you know, obviously, I'm not going in order here. I'm just pointing things out and recalling them as they come to mind. But some of the most standout moments for me, first of all, this story, God of War Ragnarok story, is fucking incredible, dude. Like, I know that sometimes PlayStation fans get ridiculed for being like hyperbolic and, you know, pumping up Sony's games too much. But no, dude, I gotta tell you, like, God of War Ragnarok is a damn near perfect game for me. And the story is just, it's beyond most things that I've played or watched or read. And dude, all right, some of the highlights. There was a scene with Kratos, like the scene with Kratos when he's holding baby Atreus and he's with Faye. I was like, bro, this is it, man. Like this is truly full circle in that moment. And I just thought that was so fucking well done because, you know, what they're trying to convey is like, this is Kratos' purpose now. And this is why he is the way he is towards Atreus. And it was just so cool to see that. It was cool to see Faye in this game. It was awesome that they finally brought it like all together. And I love that scene with Kratos. there's just so much in this game, dude. It's so deep. There were just so many moments. Straw Jawline Herman, you're saying Tyrone Magnus was gushing about this game. Yeah, rightfully so, man. Rightfully so. And I'm trying not to skip to the end here because I'm trying to. It's just the ending to me was so good. I really got to emphasize, like, the ending of this game was so satisfactory. But you know what else was kind of surprising to me with this game? But it was surprising in the sense that, wow, this was not as over the top as I expected, but it's so much better for it. And what I mean is, like, as I was getting closer to the end of the game, or like maybe the final third of the game, I feel like there was this image in my mind leading up to it of like what I thought would happen. And I really was expecting there to be like and there was, but like a massive, massive moment that was just like, I don't know. It just took things to like, overdrive or whatever. But I realized like that moment never came, but instead what happened is subtlety took the place of that. And it made me realize like, holy shit, this is what makes this game a masterpiece. Is there were so many times in this game where they could have just been like, and now we're going from 0 to 1,000. And they're like, nope, not quite yet. Not quite yet. And instead they let subtlety kind of, take it from moment to moment to moment. And it builds and it builds and it builds. And I really started to get nervous that, are they going to pull it off? Are they going to pull it off? And, I will admit that I did come across some comments from people before I fully completed the game, basically saying like they were disappointed in the final fight or the ending was disappointing them. And I was like, oh shit, like, I hope that's not true. And I was just so glad that none of that ended up being true, because the fight with what was the name of the wolf? I forget the name of the wolf. The wolf becomes Fenrir, which was awesome. Like, I didn't see that coming. And that was so cool. Garm, yeah, dude, that was a moment where they took it from 0 to 1,000. And what was so awesome about that fight was when you were done it, like, I thought like, man, I felt like shit. How did you guys feel? Because you could tell like Atreus was trying to, I feel like I could really relate to both Atreus and Kratos in that moment where, Kratos is basically saying like, we're going to have to kill this thing, like we're not going to be able to tame it. And Atreus is like, come on, give me a chance. Like we can do it. And by the end of the fight, they have to kill the wolf. They have to kill Garm. And you could tell like Atreus is depressed, and, Kratos is obviously like, we had to do what we had to do. And it just leaves you with this kind of shitty feeling. And then it just really shocked me how when you thought you were getting ready to leave the realm, it comes back for you, and it like didn't die. And you're like, oh shit, I guess I got to keep fighting it. And then by the end of it, Atreus puts Fenrir's soul into Garm, and he was able to do that because Garm didn't have a soul, And I just thought that was like, wow, it's this game. I don't know, man. Like this game is so masterfully told, and the storytelling is so next level. Yeah, the second fight with Thor was even better, and I was thinking about what they did with Thor's character, and at first I think I felt like, oh wow, that was a bit underwhelming. Like I thought Thor was going to do more, but then I realized actually Thor played the perfect role in this game, where Thor does die, and it's actually Odin that kills Thor, which it makes sense because this whole the whole point of the game was to, in my opinion, basically convince you that Odin is really, 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 really bad. And Do you know what I think? Santa Monica Studio achieved really, really well in this game, to a degree in which I have to give them a lot of credit for this. There was really only one character, in my opinion, in this entire game that was just unequivocally like, you're the fucking most annoying character ever, and I want you to die. And I tend to not like characters like that because it's just too black and white, you know what I mean? But it was Heimdall, dude. Like, they made him like insufferable, and it made sense. It made sense that because there was one character that, I mean, it was done perfectly, but that's what I think is cool, is that like, I normally don't enjoy when there are characters that are put in where it's like, this character's here just for you to hate them. Because I sometimes feel like that's a little cheap, but where I thought that, you know what, this is necessary in this game because we need to see somebody get up in Kratos' face that's like, you know, there is no reasoning, there is no talking. And out of everything that happened over the course of Ragnarok, the one moment where I really thought like, okay, and they obviously don't hide it from you, like they talk, you know, Kratos and Mimir talking about it back and forth, but when Kratos fought Heimdall and killed him and like made it clear like, I'm going to kill him, and it's a brutal fight, and even Kratos tries to show mercy at the end, you know, but that it pretty much forced him to go back in that moment to who he was very briefly, momentarily, for a different reason though. You know, he's not doing it out of hate and revenge, but I thought that was cool because I was convinced that at some point in this game, Kratos was going to snap, right? And I thought that there was going to be a moment where Kratos just lost himself and basically fully converted back to his old self. And he never did. Like, he never did. Like, Kratos really, truly has come full circle where that side of him, you know, the closest I think they got to was when Thor was basically edging him on at the beginning of the game, being like, I want to see the God of War. And I feel like, I don't know how you guys felt about this part, but when Kratos gave Thor that big punch to the face in the beginning, and I feel like he looked like he was hanging on for dear life. And I guess what I mean to say is, I don't think that Kratos can be like that anymore. I think he's too old for it. Because even in that moment when he was like about to maybe try killing Thor, even after that big punch to his face that knocked his tooth out, you know, he had this look on his face, Kratos that is, that he looked like, and I don't know, I guess maybe it's not that he doesn't have it in him. Maybe it was the fact that he was getting shook, you know? He had this look on his face like he is about to maybe break, and he's maybe fearful. He had like a look of fear in his face, like he doesn't want to go back to that. And it was interesting because when you get to that part later in the game where you go to kill Heimdall, Kratos just has a different demeanor about it, you know? Like, you could tell he's more in control. He's logical. He's not. Yeah, he knows what he's doing and why exactly he's doing it, and he knows this is not the same. And I thought that was a cool moment. Something else I want to give Santa Monica a lot of credit for with this game was the way that they treated Odin, where I don't know how you guys felt, but there was I don't want to say I felt bad for Odin, but I kind of did a little bit, where I was like, this man is so obsessed with finding answers. And I love the parallel between Odin and Atreus, where Atreus, like, you know, all throughout the game, Atreus is obsessed with finding answers, with knowing and understanding and knowing what's going to happen. And you can clearly see, like, if you look at Odin, like, that's who you will become if this is what's most important to you, if you can't let it go. And I feel like there's like a universal message there, obviously. William, again, man, thank you so much, dude. Really donating a lot to the stream today. Really appreciate it, man. You're saying, I'm glad that his wife advice to open your heart to the suffering of innocent civilians in war is what changed Kratos' future. Yeah, dude, the line delivery in this was just truly phenomenal. I mean, the moment when there's just so many good moments between Kratos and Atreus that are just so like genuinely heartwarming. And it really, again, it's like, who would have thought this is where Kratos' character would have ended? And again, William with another 20, dude. Thank you. You're saying the future seers explain fate doesn't exist, just that people are predictable because they rarely change. So when Kratos opened his heart, that's when his prophecy changed. Justice, not vengeance. Exactly, dude. Exactly. And it was, you're right, like that, when we came across I forget the name of the Norns or something like that, I think is what they're called, where they're basically supposed to be the prophet tellers, right? And they do end up revealing that, yeah, prophecy isn't really actually written in stone, or it's like, it's not necessarily true. It's just that we can just tell what you're going to do next. Like, you're so predictable, you're so obvious. And I thought that was just such a cool way to kind of undo, or not undo, but validate, I think, Kratos and his entire mentality. Because from the beginning, Kratos is like, I don't believe in prophecy, or like, we're able to shape our own destiny. And as more and more things were happening throughout the game, it really started to seem like, you sure about that, Kratos? Like, you just seem to be following the exact thing that said you would. And in that moment, it did confirm to the player as well as Kratos that, hey, Kratos is right. And the only way Kratos was to be right was to admit that he was wrong. And that's interesting to me, because like you said, when he turned around and said, like, no, I was wrong, Atreus, like, you need to open your heart to it, and you should, and that's your greatest strength. That I think is a complete 180 from even the Kratos, not even old Kratos from the first three games, but that's a complete 180 from the Kratos we saw at the beginning of God of War 2018, at the beginning of this entire journey. And it's just so cool, man. I think that they just absolutely nailed it. I think that the arc between Freya and Kratos, and how they mended that, and how, man, I gotta say, Freya, the fact that she basically becomes the new Atreus by the end of this game was shocking to me. I would have never seen that coming in a million years. I could have maybe seen Kratos getting a new companion potentially, but I didn't think it would be Freya. I actually thought Freya was going to die in this game. Not necessarily by Kratos' hand, but, by Odin. And I'm still like kind of surprised. It's just crazy how it all panned out. And so to kind of talk about the very ending of the game, sorry about that. To talk about the very ending of the game, I loved it, dude. I mean, don't get me wrong. I loved everything about this game and this story. And, to me, this is a sequel truly done right. This is the type of experience that I was hoping for. And I thought that the ending was just so well executed, and I didn't see this coming. Basically, Kratos and Atreus part ways, and it's hard for both of them. But, Atreus, they clearly leave many different things open for him to have his future game, like he still needs to figure out what to do with the rest of the giants. There's still quite a few questions left unanswered, and he has to, Kratos passed the torch, essentially. Yeah, Loki leaves, Atreus remains. Such a good line, dude. And And he goes with Angerboda, and it's pretty much implied that he's going to go on his own adventures now without Kratos. And what I was really wondering at that point, I was like, wow, like that is okay. There it is. There's the closure. But then I was like, well, what the hell's Kratos going to do now? And then they had a little extra ending for Kratos where he opens the last panel to show basically where his journey ended. And it was of basically him being a leader and leading, leading the people of this realm and being their new god. Yeah, basically being the king. And that was, I think that was such a cool closure for Kratos, because one of the things that Odin says to kind of mess with Kratos' head earlier in the game when you're searching for him is, when you're in Svartalheim again, and you're trying, you just get the the Dropnir. I think that's the name of the spear, right? Totally forgot to mention, you get a whole nother weapon in this game, which is awesome. But you get your spear, and as you're making your way to continue your journey, Odin pops in, and he really starts messing with Kratos' head, saying like, do you even know? Can you even imagine that kind of love? To be worshipped, to have people love you in that way, and you're not a god. Yeah, no one loves you, no one worships you. You don't even know. You don't know what that love is like. Yeah, it was a really good little speech from Odin, but it was really it was you could tell it was just really to get in Kratos' head, and it did kind of get in his head, because the thing is, like, I think Kratos really, the biggest thing he struggled against is himself, where he couldn't imagine himself actually being anywhere on that level. Like, I think he feels like he probably came a long way. He's not the same person he used to be, but I don't think he could ever imagine himself truly being like a leader of people in that way. Or at least again, right after everything he did. And it just comes totally full circle. And it was so good, man. And it's really interesting too, because if you go back to God of War 2018, all of the times that Atreus and Kratos are learning about the God of War, Tyr, the God of War, and the prophecies say that, Tyr's going to be the one to lead us to battle during Ragnarok. And it like, I feel like if you go back, you could maybe get a sense like, are you sure you're not, like, is Tyr supposed to be Kratos? And then as the game goes on, you're like, no, Tyr's a real person. Tyr's a real god, and it's not Kratos. But Kratos does take that position. Kratos is the champion. He is the god of war, and Tyr, even when you meet real Tyr, he is straight up just like, I mean, he doesn't seem like a total pacifist, but he definitely seems more, yeah, Kratos was Tyr. He has the spear and everything. Yeah, dude, it was, I don't know, man. I don't know how anybody could play God of War's Ragnarok and feel like it wasn't, complete, and it wasn't, the music of the game. Oh my God, dude. Oh my God. I feel like sometimes I take music for granted, like I feel like that's kind of the purpose though, is the music isn't supposed to stand out. It's supposed to raise everything, and you don't really notice it. You feel it, but you don't notice it. And I feel like that's where the music, when I do try to think about it and pay attention to it, was very, very good. Yeah, one of the best soundtracks, I think. Yeah, when Kratos blew the horn, yeah, dude, it was so good. There were so many good moments, man. Truly. One of the funnier things that I came across, there were a lot of funny moments in the game. One of the more recent ones, though, was Lunda, I think her name is. She's like the new, blacksmith now. She does not hide the fact that she thinks Kratos is hot as hell, and she's like always like flirting with him and stuff. And at one point, she's like saying a bunch of things to him like calling him beefcake and praising his muscles. And she's like, "Oh, should I stop?" And Kratos is just like, "No." That was funny as hell. I'm like, damn, Kratos is enjoying it. I mean, I'm sure after all these years and being called a monster, it probably is nice to have somebody saying some complimenting you. That was pretty funny. Have I tried the Berserkers yet? Yeah. Some of them are really tough, dude. Some of them are really, really tough. But yeah, I've been playing through it. I gotta admit, some of the battles in here with the Berserkers are extremely frustrating. Like I had to take a little break. And then she said, "Okay, beefcake." Yeah. That's funny, dude. I love that. Saying Ragnarok shocked you with its comedy. Yeah. It was done well, man. I don't need a snack. Yes. I remember that too. That was awesome. See, Kratos, I told you need a snack. Blue Streak 320, a member for 1 month. Thank you, man. You're saying fun Norse mythology fact. Loki turns to a mare and gets impregnated by a stallion. Hope you learned something. Oh, God. I'm just going to pretend I didn't read that, man. All right. MBG, that Kratos and Atreus as a bear combo, though. Oh, my God. Yeah, dude. Some of the imagery, too. I was shocked when Loki could turn into a wolf as well. I thought like he could just do a bear and that would pretty much be it. And then he turned into a wolf. But yeah, those two Valkyries towards the end of the game and, Atreus taking his form was awesome. And let me talk a moment here about playing as Atreus, where I got to say, like, I really was under the impression, because going into it, I knew from some spoilers that you were going to be playing as Atreus at some point. And I thought it was going to be like a Last of Us situation, where it was just like one section of the game. And I definitely was caught off guard in a good way by how many sections there were as Loki. Now, I know that there were some people that didn't like that. The reason why I liked it, though, is because they went all in, dude. They went all in. They gave him an entire skill tree, and he was just way more fleshed out as a playable character than I thought he would be. And by the end, man, I think you get a real sense of, yeah, he's really coming in. He's really coming into his godhood now, where he is, he's kicking ass. Oh yeah, dude. And when he tries to punch the chest open, when you first play as him, that was awesome. He tries to punch it open like Kratos and almost snaps his hand. I love that, dude. Yeah, dude, the performances, I don't know. Sindri was real good. Odin was good. Though everybody was good, man. Thor was good. I got to give a lot of credit to I think his name is Sonny Soljic, though. I don't know if he's not a kid anymore, obviously. I think he's older now, but he does Atreus. I think he stood out, man. I do. I think he did an incredible job as Atreus and as Loki. I don't know what to call him, Atreus, Loki. I loved Christopher Judge's performance as Kratos. I think he just absolutely killed it, but I don't know, man. It was just, I think Sonny Soljic, he nailed it, dude. He absolutely nailed it. But you're saying he really won you over. He is ready for a main game. I agree, actually. I feel like this game kind of makes you yearn a little bit to want to play. Oh yeah, and Angerboda too. Yeah, Freya, they were all so good, man. I think for as much as I loved Atreus's performance, I do think Sindri, to me, only because it was so like unexpected. Odin was good. I was surprised, man. I gotta say, I was a little bit surprised by the end that I did feel kind of a little bit bad, just a little bit for Odin, only because like to me that's good villain writing right there, where Odin was not like just a black and white bad guy villain, and I love that. I love that they took that approach because I kind of went into the game thinking that's what it was going to be. And I feel like when you look at Thor, you kind of got that vibe where like Thor's giving you like kind of this feeling of, oh, this dude's just a piece of shit, you know? Like, and I kind of expected Odin to be even worse, but the thing about Odin, and also like, can we talk about how powerful Odin is? You know, like he's just casually taking on pretty much everybody. Like it's nothing, just casually taking on Kratos, Freya, and Loki. That was pretty cool. But yeah, I just really enjoyed that about his character as the villain, where, you know, he was very humanized in a way. You know, he was very humanized, and they made you kind of understand like how he turned into this terrible character and this terrible person, and you know, you get the sense where, well, I mean, they don't hide it, but at the end he's basically like, look, I just want to know. I need to know like what happens. You know, I need to know the answers. And I feel like what was cool about that is that's a very human and relatable thing where like, yeah, I think everybody wants to know that, right? Like everybody wants to know like what's beyond this life, right? And it's the ultimate question that no one can really answer for certain while they're alive anyway. And you know, it's cool because I thought that it was going to be something more superficial in a way. I mean, I guess the best way to describe it is I thought it was going to be something a little bit more like a little bit more cliche. Like he wants more power, you know, he wants to rule everything. But, you know, and it's also interesting that in a way, if he had just let go, right? Like if he had just let go of maybe it's okay to not know, man, he probably could have turned everything around, you know? And I think that that's like, you know, Atreus had to do pretty much what Odin couldn't, which was to let go. And that was the thing, you know, when Atreus had the mask at the end and he decides to break it in half, you know, that was the moment where he decided, you know, I'm walking a different path here. I'm not following this. And one last thing I'll say too is that I was not expecting there to be such a duality between, or contrast, I guess you could say, between Atreus in this game versus Atreus in the last game, in the sense that I was totally caught off guard at how many times like Atreus basically is like, I'm going to Odin and I'm going to Asgard, and it's I think he was trying to tell himself that like he was doing the right thing, obviously, and I guess in a way he was, but like he wasn't doing anything wrong. But I just didn't expect there to be a kind of, you know, you see Odin basically trying to father him a little bit and take Kratos's place. That was an interesting twist for me. I didn't think they were going to go that route. So that was cool. Yeah, man. I loved it. I loved God of War Ragnarok, and you know, to me, this is what it's all about. People wonder why I'm such a big fan of PlayStation, and like this, I mean, this is literally it. This to me is as good as it gets. This is why I have a YouTube channel covering PlayStation. This is why I play on PlayStation, and this is why I fight so hard, man. You know, I know people get tired of it and they think it's all just fanboy nonsense, but this right here is what I feel like I'm fighting for and what I'm pushing it back against, because I'm telling you, like, you look at everything that went into this game, God of War Ragnarok, and really quick, I see somebody saying, what did I think about the plot twist of Tyr being Odin? I mean, dude, I think it was done pretty well. And I thought, you know, what I thought was cool is how Brock was the one. It's unfortunate that he had to die, but it was really cool to see Brock basically call his shit out. And I love that because you like the way Odin gave it up was he got pissed. He got pissed off because Brock basically was catching on and he's like, hold on a second. Hold on. Like, what are you saying here? And it was done well. And I thought that it worked so well because Brock absolutely would be the character. He would be the one to pick up on that, And I loved Brock in this game. And it's sad. It's sad that he's not going to be in any future games, man. We're all over here thinking Kratos is going to be the one to die. But here it was, Brock. So, yeah, he did great, man. I also really like I like how Brock was the one to help you get the spear, too. And there was like kind of that moment between Brock and Kratos. And that was really cool. Yeah, and the side quest, dude. Oh my God. So yeah, what I'm trying to say is that like when you look at the entirety of God of War Ragnarok, I mean, really think about everything that went into this game. Think about the production values. Think about the animations. Think about the mocap, the voice acting. Think about just everything that goes into it and how, we always talk a lot about on the channel about, $70 too much for a game. Has to be really worth it. Well, I can tell you without a doubt that God of War Ragnarok is one game that is, it was worth every single dollar, and it still is. I'm still playing it. But that when I talk about like PlayStation level quality, when I talk about PlayStation Studios, when I talk about why I'm always so excited to get new game announcements, I know you guys understand this, but I just think that this is a good chance to reiterate it. This is why, because like this is by far my game of the year. Like there's no contest. I mean, don't get me wrong, Elden Ring, incredible game, but Elden Ring didn't make me feel the things that I felt while playing God of War. And to me, that's what matters most. Simply put, God of War Ragnarok took me through a wide gamut of emotions. And of course, I had many different emotions playing Horizon Forbidden West, Elden Ring. But for me, God of War Ragnarok is hands down my personal game of the year. And I loved it, dude. I loved it. And God, when you experience something good when you just keep thinking it. You find yourself just keep thinking about it. You just keep thinking about certain moments or certain lines or certain scenes, or certain battles. And also the very end when Ragnarok was happening, the only thing I will say, the only thing that I wish they would have had a little dedicated cutscene for, just because it looked so cool, and I wanted to get a kind of a zoom in on it, was when Thor was fighting. Oh my God, what's the snake's name? Jormungandr. That's it, right? Am I saying it right? Jormungandr. When they were fighting, and you could kind of see in the distance Thor flying around and fighting the snake. That was so sick looking. I was like, oh my God. I really wanted there to be a little dedicated like cutscene or something showing that. And that was probably the only thing that I was like left kind of hoping for. But yeah, dude. I saw you're asking, did you free both of the jellyfish with Atreus or just one of them? So I freed one with Atreus and the other with Freya. Was there something oh yeah, I guess you could free the second one with Atreus, huh? What changes? Actually, now that I think about it, there's a lot of stuff you could probably do with Atreus that I'm over here thinking, oh, I was always supposed to do this with Freya. You have to tell me what the difference is. Shane Ramsey, you're saying Sony for the W. Absolutely, man. Saying ABG, it's better to free both jellyfish with Atreus. Watch on YouTube. Oh, dude, I'm gonna have to check that out. Yeah, because that was a pretty big moment. You know, that was a pretty big moment. Yeah, dude, the side quests in this game are incredible. I mean, really though, dude, like they are so good. They are shockingly good. Rodney Coots, you're saying I got the platinum earlier today, and King Rolf, I don't know how you say it, and Queen Na made Sigrun look like child's play. Yeah, dude, I haven't done the Valkyrie Queen yet. So I came across her, and I'm like nervous. Am I not gonna be able to platinum this game? Because I came across her, and I'm like, oh, okay, I'm gonna fight her, and dude, she touched me, and I died. Like I just died, and I was like, oh shit, what the fuck? It really made me take a couple steps back, where I'm like, what do I gotta do to make it so I don't die if she just touches me, right? And I've been upgrading the starting armor. By the way, I heard that apparently, and you know it's so funny, dude, because when I was playing the game, normally playing the story, I wanted to keep upgrading the starting armor that you get. The Armor of Survival, I think it's called. And I stopped because I was like, this is probably a mistake. Like, even if I take this armor to the max level, it's probably not nearly as good as higher tier armors. And then I ended up learning that actually, if you upgrade the starting armor all the way, it's one of the best armors in the entire game. And I was like, I knew it because I thought it looked like one of the more badass armors. Yeah, the Fimbulwinter armor. We just need to get the fur coat or whatever, the fur cape or cover that Kratos had at the beginning. That looked really badass. But yeah, I don't know, man. I don't know what it's gonna take for me to be able to beat I don't know how you say her name, but to beat the Valkyrie Queen, because I mean, some of these berserkers that I'm fighting are pretty damn difficult, but that really just like took me back, where I was like, how the hell did she, like, I can't even move. I couldn't do anything. I don't know. Am I gonna have to lower the difficulty? Does it matter if you lower the difficulty? Is she just that hard and that difficult where it's like you can lower it all you want, she's still gonna whoop your ass? I don't know, because I see people talking about how they're beating this Valkyrie on the highest difficulty. I'm like, what, dude? More power to you. I cannot do that. I don't think I'd ever be able to do that. But yeah, I'm the one thing I will say that I hate about platinuming games, and it does not matter what game it is. Like, this is not just a God of War thing, but I find this, I don't know. I'm on regular difficulty right now. It's 67 hours. I gotta see how much time I have in the game. I was just gonna say though, one thing I hate about platinuming games, and I can't help it because I know that people just say, dude, you don't have to platinum it. William, you're saying make sure you watch the video of that conversation Kratos and Atreus have through the entire second jellyfish side quest, not just the ending. It's just a really good bonding moment. Yeah, I will do that because the first jellyfish, it becomes clear that this is like a significant bonding moment between Kratos and Atreus, and I thought it was really good. I didn't know it would continue. What do I think of Angerboda? I think she's a cool character. I'm interested to see like where her and Loki end up going, in the future. But one thing I hate about platinuming any game, collectibles. I hate it, man. I really do. I just can't stand this aspect of gaming, and I've never minded collectibles that are like, for example, the poems in this game that you collect. It took me a little bit to realize, like, oh, these are nods to other PlayStation games, and I actually really enjoyed them because I felt like, oh, cool, like I'm interested to see what poems are for what games. And sometimes like lore collectibles I can understand, but I just can't stand when I'm telling you the greatest trophy, one of the greatest trophies I ever witnessed in a game was Sucker Punch with Ghost of Tsushima. Because I remember when I first looked at the collectibles in that game, I'm like, oh my God, no. Like there were so many. And then the trophy was like, just get like 15 of them. And I was like, what? Wait, hold on now. What? You're willing to give me the platinum. You're not going to make me get every single collectible in this massive open world. Holy shit. That is like, I want to see more of that. I want to see more of that because I don't mind trophies that are, like a little bit grindy, like level this thing up all the way, get the best armor, beat this boss. Whatever, do side missions. I love that stuff, but I just hate specifically collectible trophies that say you need to get all of them. All of them. I hate that. Yeah, clank and bang. Dude, the poems are great. Sucker Punch knows we hate collectibles. Dude, I'm telling you, that should be a mandate for all game developers. You cannot make it so they have to get every single collectible. All right. Well, I think that does conclude our spoiler talk for this portion of the podcast. I think I've discussed, there's a couple characters I probably didn't talk much about, like Thrud was a really cool character. I think it's safe to say Thrud's going to be in Loki's standalone game. You're saying you're losing too many viewers with this spoiler part. You should move on. It's all right. I don't want to let that deter me from being able to have these conversations. I mean, I feel like I've waited long enough. So yeah, Thrud was a cool character. I forgot to mention her because I thought, dude, I loved the part in the game when you were playing as Atreus and she was your companion, and she's basically making fun of Atreus because he's like not ripped. And at one point she's like, have you seen these arms? It was pretty funny. I was laughing. But yeah, that was cool. I wasn't expecting Thor's daughter to kind of be such a prominent character as well. But yeah, if I have further thoughts on this game, like I don't want to say definitively this is the last time I'm talking about God of War Ragnarok. Certainly won't be. But if there's anything in particular regarding the story or anything that I want to talk to you guys about in later episodes, I'll obviously put the spoiler warning back up. But I think I'm gonna. You're saying talks like this are what it's all about, bro. I agree, man. I agree. I wanted to start off the podcast talking about this rather than the Activision thing, but truthfully, the reason I didn't is because I know. I mean, I know I said that like, oh, I don't want to lose viewership, but I have no idea how many people are just going to immediately tune out because they because they haven't completed the game yet. You're saying he's losing viewers to this, but not the 2 hours of Activision Blizzard topic. What the F, bro? I mean, look, I'm going to be totally real with you right now. I would love to never talk about the Activision Blizzard thing again. But it's just that this week in particular, there's just so much regarding it. And I clearly had a lot to say about it, but I don't know what else could happen with that situation that could, that could incite a conversation this long again. So, all right. So that's it for the spoiler talk. So let's talk about something else regarding God of War that's not spoiler territory, but let's talk about the fact that this game broke a record for PlayStation. We talked for basically weeks prior to the launch of this game about the possibility of this happening. And a lot of you were very confident. A lot of you guys were basically saying like, oh yeah, it's going to break a new record or set a new record. And the game to beat was The Last of Us Part 2. The Last of Us Part 2 sold 4 million copies in 3 days. And some people were saying, well, for God of War Ragnarok, they're saying it sold 5.1 million copies in 5 days. So did it really sell more? And yeah, it did, because the thing is, The Last of Us Part 2, after 3 days, clearly kind of hit a wall with sales. It didn't jump up to 5 million in 2 more days. And that's important to understand. I'm sure that by day 3, God of War Ragnarok probably already sold more than 4 million copies. But what happened was they saw that it wasn't really slowing down the same way. So they were like, let's see if it can get to 5 million. And it took 2 more days to get to 5 million. And they're like, okay, we're going to call it here. You know what's insane to me, though? What's insane to me is how, for as impressive as that is, that Sony announced we sold 5.1 million copies of God of War in a week, in 5 days, and this is our best-selling first-party game ever. Fastest selling. New record set. And that's awesome. Like, that's huge. Like, people are downplaying that, but that's really good. That's really, really good. But then, I don't know if it was the same day or the next day, Nintendo announces, yeah, Pokemon sold 10 million in 3 days. Now I'm going to be careful talking about this because I'm not too in the loop. But isn't Pokemon, the new Pokemon games, aren't they completely broken? Has 2 versions, though. Yeah, I guess you're right. A lot of people probably double dipping. Because I swear all I've been seeing on the internet are people posting glitches and bugs. Granted, most of them are pretty damn funny. But I don't know if it's being exaggerated, or is the game actually like a broken mess. I'm only saying this because it's like, to me, that's kind of, I hate seeing that shit, dude. I hate seeing that shit. Like, it's like, it reminds me when Cyberpunk 2077 launched and it was a completely broken on the PS4 and Xbox One. And they, 3 days later announced, oh, we sold 13 million copies or something. I'm like, what the fuck, bro? And I hate that because it's like, I guess we're all just deciding that it's okay. Pokemon of War would be insane numbers. Yeah, dude, for sure. True Witty, you're saying, did you see the Easter egg on PlayStation All-Stars and God of War Ragnarok? I did, dude. I did, and I love that. We should not speak of this. That was funny, man. That was really funny. I'm not trying to basically compare. I guess what I'm trying to say is God of War, for me, was a flawless experience. I had 0 glitches, 0 bugs, nothing. It was perfect. And I guess I'm just saying that it makes me feel a certain way where it's like, I understand that the Pokemon games are great. I used to play the Pokemon games a long time ago. And it's not the fact that it's a Pokemon game. Of course, it's the Pokemon name that's going to move units. And I'm not saying it should have necessarily sold less. I don't think it was ever going to sell less. It's Pokemon. But it is a little bit upsetting when it's like, dude, I feel like it's God of War that should be doing that number. I feel like it's better earned, man. Where I don't know. There's a lot, like, to me, there's a lot more there. And I know I'm not trying to compare God of War to Pokemon. They're two very different games, but I just feel like at the very least, one, like, God of War should be rewarded more so, you know, because it's like a game this big, a game this huge, the chances of there being a lot of things that could potentially go wrong with bugs and glitches, and the fact that it comes out immaculate, no issues whatsoever, runs perfectly. I just would like to see that. I don't want to say that, like, oh, 5.1 million isn't enough. It is. But it just, to me, makes me feel kind of weird when it's like, but these broken Pokemon games basically sold double. You guys get what I'm saying? You're saying God of War doesn't appeal to the masses like Pokemon does. That's true. I know that. I know. But surely you guys understand, like, how that looks, right? Where it's like, you know, and I saw people making jokes that, like, oh, now that it's announced that, Pokemon already sold 10 million copies, they're never patching the game. I mean, I would hope that's not true, clearly, but yeah, it is the branding. I know. It's just such a tough thing, though, you know, because like, from what I understand, I saw people talking about this, and I didn't look into it too deeply, but from what I heard, apparently the reason why the game is so buggy and broken in some ways is because they weren't allowed to delay it. Like, they had to hit the deadline of you're releasing this game this holiday, you know? And I don't know, man. I think that's just messed up. I feel like it's that type of stuff that shit's gotta go, man. It's gotta go. I know, like, it would have been really shitty, like really, really shitty if God of War had to get delayed into early next year. But if it was like the game's just not, it's too buggy, like, we need to polish it more, I would have preferred that. That's where I feel like, you know, everybody was so worried that God of War was going to get delayed to 2023, and they're like, no, we're locked in, man. Because I think I think God of War was supposed to come out a lot sooner than it did, but they just took the time where they're like, we need to make sure this game is 100%. And I just want to give Sony their due credit in this case. I want to give Santa Monica their due credit, where, like, they could have, if they wanted, did the same thing. You know, they could have launched a game like God of War Ragnarok in a much less polished state, and they could have gotten away with it. And they probably still would have broke a record, but they didn't. Instead, they made sure this game is 100%. I commend them for that. I do. I think that they deserve a lot of credit for that. And, you know, to me, that's one of the things that I feel good about when I pay $60, $70 for a full price game. And I just feel like I really need to make sure we highlight this, because I just don't like the notion that, you know, game publishers are like, well, we can just release it and we'll still get paid for it, and we'll fix it later. I hate that. Like, I can't stand that, because that's the message that we can, not us or not you personally, but the industry continues to send that message over and over again. And when you see publishers bragging about how well their broken game sold, it's like, God damn it. You know, I feel like we're losing a battle here that we definitely don't want to lose. But anyway, huge congratulations to Santa Monica Studio. True Whittier saying Final Fantasy 16 is taking a year for bug clearing and performance. Exactly, man. And you know, we'll see how that turns out. I mean, you would assume that that's more than enough time, and that's good. You know, the more time a game has for polish and you know, fixing and clearing bugs is good. I'm really happy, though. You know, I'm really happy to see that God of War Ragnarok broke a record, because what I said earlier about how, you know, this is why I play on PlayStation. Like, to me, this is the heart of PlayStation. I want to see this game go as far as it possibly can. I want to see this game clear 20 million units more. I want to see it just keep climbing because I want the message to be clear. If it's not, I mean, clearly it is, but I want it to be even louder that like, let's keep it going, man. Let's keep supporting this. Let's keep it going because we don't want to lose this. Some people look back at the PS4 generation and they're like, that was the golden age of PlayStation, as if it's over. Like, we're no longer in the golden age. And I don't believe that. I think we're still in the golden age. And I think that this golden age of these awesome single player narrative experiences, huge games, polished games, I think this can continue. New big IP, this can continue as long as we continue to support it. And I'm happy. I'm happy to be a supporter of this. This was $70 well spent. I'm feeling the effects of the inflation and all that. Everybody is, but this is something that is important to me, and I'm sure it's important to many of you as well. And so I'm just so happy to see that God of War did what we hoped it would, and that is set a new record. Because the biggest thing that this indicates is that it's only getting bigger. The growth is still there. That's the thing here. The growth is still there. It would have been a little bit concerning if Ragnarok didn't beat out The Last of Us Part 2. Only because at that point it would seem like maybe The Last of Us Part 2 would have been the upper limit of what is possible in terms of sales within the first couple days for these big AAA games. But clearly we haven't reached the limit yet. And now the question naturally becomes, could Spider-Man 2 now set a new record? Could Spider-Man 2 do 5.5 million? Could Spider-Man 2 do 6 million in 5 days? Could we ever get to a point with a PlayStation Studios game where we are seeing Sony, not Nintendo, but Sony come out and announce we've done 10 million in 3 days? Could we get there? You're saying you disagree. You do think that 5 million is the limit. Next gen only games, that's out of 30 million install next year, Yeah, that's true. That's true. I mean, we do have to acknowledge that God of War Ragnarok was cross-gen. So you do got to wonder, that's a great question, actually, dude. I really do wonder what these numbers would look like if Sony just decided to only release it on PS5. I mean, the idea is next year when Spider-Man comes out, it's going to come out at a time when there is no PS5 shortage anymore. You know what I mean? And you could make the argument that if God of War came out PS5 only, a lot of people who wanted PS5s wouldn't have been able to get it because they couldn't get a PS5. That's kind of ending now. And in 2023, it's clearly not going to be a problem at all anymore. So it'll be interesting. I mean, the hype for Spider-Man 2 is really, 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 really high. And Spider-Man 2 is way more, I guess you could say, I don't want to say popular. I mean, maybe, I guess it is. Spider-Man as an IP is significantly more popular than God of War. That's just a fact. That's undeniable. And so it's going to have a lot more appeal. It's going to have a much broader appeal. And when you combine that type of excitement for a sequel with, pretty broad appeal, I don't know, man. Now, the real question is this, though. The real question is, how many copies is Wolverine going to sell? That's what I want to know, because Wolverine's going to be a rated M game, you have to assume. And Wolverine is very popular, but it's certainly not as, I guess you could say, it's not as kid-friendly in a way, right, as Spider-Man. So, you know what else I want to point out, man? Can we just point out that I know this is a little bit random, but maybe not too random. Sometimes I forget that Sony announced that Ghost of Tsushima sold over 10 million units. Like, isn't that just crazy? To me, that's insane. To me, that's just so impressive. I'm only saying that because, like, I want to see more of that. I want to see more new IP just come out and just become, like, incredibly successful. I want to see more of that from Sony. And I think if anything, maybe that's what's lacking right now. It's understandable. I mean, it's only the first 2 years of the PS5, but going into 2023 and going into 2024, I really hope to see more new IP from Sony from their first party. Saying Rise of the Ronin. Rise of the Ronin is a new IP, yeah, but that's from a second party. I want to see like I mean, you have to imagine there's probably at least a few new IP in development at PlayStation Studios. I'm curious to know what they are. All right, but there we go. I just had to make sure to, highlight that and celebrate the fact that, PlayStation fans are out there doing what I think they should be, and that is supporting PlayStation Studios, supporting single-player games. And, I gotta admit, I feel like right now, after getting an experience like this, this is the big AAA single-player experience that I've been wanting from Sony. Now would be a good time for them to announce a live service game, I think, or a multiplayer game, because I'm like, you gave me Horizon, you gave me God of War, you're giving me Spider-Man 2, you're giving me Final Fantasy 16. You know what? Yeah, go ahead, show me what multiplayer game do you have coming next year? Because we know Sony has a multiplayer game coming. And I mean, when I say coming, I mean like releasing next year, at some point next year. And I'm ready to see what that game is, because I don't know, man. As time goes on, and I realize like I don't play Call of Duty anymore at all. I don't play PUBG anymore. I've come to realize that I don't have any more go-to multiplayer games that I play anymore. I've kind of taken a long break from multiplayer games. Now more than ever, I'm eager to see a multiplayer game from Sony, because to me personally, it feels like the right time. So I'm curious, man. I guess I'm just saying this because I do wonder if there's a chance we could see one of Sony's live service games revealed or shown off at the Game Awards. Insurgency Sandstorm. Is that game good? That's like an FPS, isn't it? Like a really kind of realistic, almost military. I don't know if it's a sim, but I've heard of that game. Is that any good? I feel like I've seen that a couple times. Anybody who's played it, let me know. Let me know if you think it's worth trying out. But the next topic we're moving on to, certainly an interesting one, not one that I thought we were going to be talking about. You're saying it's a very good tactical FPS. If you like hardcore, then yes. Is it anything like Hell Let Loose? Because, dude, I played Hell Let Loose. I could not play that game, bro. I tried it. I think it was like free on PS Plus, and I tried it. I was like, I don't know what in God's name I'm doing in this game, and I can't play it. So if it's anything like that, yeah, that's going to be a big no for me, frankly. But Waved Max, you're saying you had the weirdest experience in Hell Let Loose. Dude, I did not understand what that game was until I started it up. The only thing I remember about playing Hell Let Loose was I got into a match and I'm like, oh, I guess this is kind of like Battlefield. And I had no idea what I was talking about or thinking. The only memory I have of that game is literally running across what was basically an open world, World War II battlefield, massive. and I'm just running and I'm running and I'm running and I'm not seeing anybody around. And I'm looking at the map and I'm like, okay, I think if I go here, I think this is where the stuff is, like, there's some action going on here. And I'm running and I'm running. And after, I kid you not, probably I think 15 minutes of running, 15 minutes, I finally made it to a spot where there was some action going on. And then I just died. And I don't even know where I died from. I just got killed by someone shooting me from I don't even know where. And then when I respawned again, it put me all the way back. And it was like, now you got to run again. And I'm like, I can't do this. I uninstalled it after that. I'm sure if I tried to stick with it, maybe I would have figured it out. But it's funny that you mentioned that game because I totally forgot that I ever played it. And I had a horrible experience. Anyway, the next topic we're going to talk about, believe it or not, is the PlayStation 6. Now, I did see some people commenting on my video when I talked about this, being like, bro, you're so desperate talking about the PlayStation 6. Dude, it's not my fault. It's not my fault. Like, this was revealed by Sony. By Sony. This isn't even a rumor. It's not even a rumor or a leak. According to Sony, they will not be releasing the next PlayStation console before 2027. Now, here's the really good news. I don't know how many people were questioning this, but I think some people were saying, like, maybe there's a chance Sony won't do any more consoles after the PS5. Like, maybe they'll be done. And I think to most PlayStation players, that sounded pretty ridiculous. Like, no way. And so to me, this is like pretty much explicit confirmation that we are getting another generation of PlayStation consoles. And I'm happy about that, man. I'm really happy about that because, I mean, yeah, it's true that things are getting kind of weird these days. And, you know, PlayStation as a platform is opening up a lot more. And, you know, you do kind of have to wonder, like, will console gaming still be relevant in the year 2027? And Sony believes it will be. And Sony is obviously going to do another generation of PlayStation. Now, you know, it doesn't explicitly say in the document that the PlayStation 6 is releasing in 2027. It doesn't say that. The only thing it says is that they are not planning to release the next gen PlayStation before 2027. So that does heavily imply that the soonest we could see it is in 2027, which would mean that the build up to it would happen in 2026. So, Hicksock says, do we keep buying physical games, MBG, or will the PlayStation 6 ditch the drive? Dude, I'm just going to say it now. Sony would be, in my opinion, out of their damn minds if they think that they can ship a PlayStation 6 without, even if it's a detachable disk drive, there has to be the option. And I'm going to give you one reason why I know for a fact there will be a disk drive option for the PlayStation 6. And it's as simple as this. Well, I got to learn to stop speaking so definitively. I think my cat's getting upset. It's as simple as the PlayStation 6 is obviously going to be backwards compatible with the PlayStation 5. So there are going to be potentially millions of PlayStation 5 players who are going to have disc versions. And, you know, in order for them to take advantage of backwards compatibility and in order for that to be something viable for them, the PlayStation 6 is going to have a disk drive model. I mean, I don't know if there's something I'm not thinking of here, but I don't know that there's a way that Sony could, make a digital-only PlayStation 6 and not lock out all of those people who bought PS5 discs. I mean, unless unless there's something they could do. But I think people would be too pissed off. So I think there's going to be a disc drive option for sure. But man, I hope we always get PlayStation consoles. And I do have to wonder, like, what will PlayStation 6 games look like at that point? What are games going to look like come 2027? Not even, what? Scratch that. Not even what will games look like. What's the industry going to look like in 2027? You're saying Sony will probably only make a digital console but have bundles with a detachable disc drive. Yeah, I think they're going to do that too. I think that the rumor of Sony transitioning to a digital-only PlayStation 5 next year for the slim version, where there's a disc drive attachment you can buy if you want that, I think that's true, and I think that's going to happen. And I think this is a way for Sony to make it easier for the PlayStation 6 as well. It's a handheld in 2027. Yeah, the PlayStation 6 is just a handheld. More realistic facial animations. Yeah, I could see that. I guess I'll ask you guys, like, what is it that you would want from the PlayStation 6? You know what I want? I want Sony to go back to black. I do. I want to see Sony go back to their more. I feel like Sony. I don't know, man. I'm still so surprised that Sony went with a two-tone white and black for the PS5. I just feel like that's so unlike them. I feel like they've had such continuity and consistency throughout almost all of the PlayStation generations, and I don't know. I would just like to see them kind of bring back a more traditional looking console. Yeah, I have the black plates on the black cover on my PlayStation 5 as well, and the black DualSense. And I don't know, man. I think it looks better. I was really infatuated with the PS5 when we first saw it because of just how, I don't know, I guess I was like caught up in the hype, but at this point, I don't know. I would like to see them kind of go back to that. Maybe it's just for nostalgic reasons at this point. I think that might be what it is. And you know what else? Sony, come on. I got to complain. I know this is the biggest nitpick. It really is, but I got to complain about it. One thing I absolutely did not like, and I realize this now when it comes to what Sony did with the DualSense, and this really rubbed me the wrong way, like, over time, because I started to think to myself, like, that, what are you doing, man? Like, why would you do that? Is they changed the colors of the symbols on the controller. I mean, for every PlayStation generation, they had the classic colors where X was blue, or cross, right? Cross was blue, circle was red, square was pink, and triangle was green. And they're just like, nah, we're just going to make it a boring, what is it? Like, it's like a gray color. And I'm just like, come on, Sony. Like that, like, only because that's just so synonymous. Like, those colors are, and I feel like Sony did this because they wanted to kind of go with the, you can kind of tell, like, they want to follow the Apple model a little bit, where it's like they want to look more, I don't know if futuristic's the right word, but just more professional, I guess. So I really hope that they kind of, I don't know. I think that's asking for too much, but I kind of hope the PlayStation 6 is kind of a throwback in a way, where it's like the PlayStation 6, or even if they want to do it with the, I don't think they would do it this generation, but make the PlayStation 6 just a more traditional looking console. Make it black. Make the DualSense black. The DualSense 2, whatever it's going to be called, and bring back the classic colors on the button faces, man. That's PlayStation, SD says rumors from Windows Central that Xbox will not have games at the Game Awards because of the regulators and Activision battle. Do you think Sony not having events this year is because of that as well? Yeah, we did talk about this. We did talk about this earlier, but just to answer your question real quick, yeah, I think that is the reason why Sony seemingly decided not to have a show this year. And we'll see if they take the same approach with the Game Awards. I hope they don't. I hope Sony announces the PlayStation 6 at the Game Awards. Just kidding, obviously. The black DualSense is a thing of beauty. I agree, man. Yeah, I just feel like, to me, the colors that are synonymous with PlayStation, obviously today it's like more blue than anything. I think today the colors that are synonymous with PlayStation are like blue and white and black. But to me, it's mostly been black, blue, and the button face colors. You know, the classic PlayStation logo. I kind of don't like that Sony's getting away from that a little bit. You know, I miss that. I hope they don't stick with it in the long run. You're saying the galactic purple is awesome. Yeah, true. They did release quite a few different covers. Oh, dude, I really hope this is my. I know I'm kind of just going off topic here a little bit, but at the Game Awards, one thing I absolutely hope we see is the announcement of the rumored Metal Gear Solid 3 remake. I don't care if it's exclusive to PlayStation or not. That doesn't matter to me. I mean, you know, it wouldn't shock me if Sony decided to go for that, because Metal Gear Solid has always been synonymous with PlayStation. I don't care about the exclusivity though. I just want to see that game. I really do. Oh man, that would be so good. See, Steve asking, are they going to bring back menu themes on the PS5? So actually, I don't know if you guys have noticed the change they made to the PlayStation 5 home screen, which I love, where the way it used to be is when you booted up your PlayStation 5, you just have a big wallpaper of a picture of whatever the news is. They don't do that anymore. Now they have a neutral black, it looks like a black and gray type background that comes with, like, built in with the PS5. And then they have like your little sections where you have your little rectangle that shows your friends that are online, and then below that you got your trophies, and then to the left of that. The point is, they've now compartmentalized these things and separated them to where I think it is actually opening the door for future themes, and that's where your themes will be. Obviously, when you highlight a game, the game then becomes the background, but the fact that they now have this homepage on the PlayStation 5 where the background is just neutral, it's just a black color, I think that's because this is their way of being like, this is how we will offer themes. And that's what I'm thinking. I hope for that. I know a lot of people, I think it's insane that this is something the PS4 has had for many, many, many years, and the PS5 still doesn't have it. It's something that a lot of people ask for, and I feel like it's just something that Sony can make easy money off of, you know, even just for the simple fact that one of the pre-order bonuses that they've offered with PS4 games for a lot of their games was, you know, you can get if you buy this game digitally, you can get a dynamic theme for the game. I think that there were quite a few people who would buy that just for that, you know, and digitally nonetheless. So I would like to see that come back. I think it would be good. But final topic I have here, well, two. First of all, how many of you guys are planning on playing The Witcher 3 for PS5? I was like, you know, I've been following this, and I was looking at all of the features that they're going to have, and I got to say, like, you know, you guys know how I feel about CD Projekt Red. They really, I don't know that I've fully recovered after the way that Cyberpunk 2077 launched, but I will say that what they're doing with The Witcher 3 is actually really cool. The fact that they're really going this above and beyond to really take advantage of the PS5 and bring The Witcher 3 up, and then they're giving it out for free, I think, to anybody who owns it on the PS4. I think that's really cool. I just want to give credit to them for doing that, because I feel like there's so much being put into it that they could easily charge for it, even just like $10, but they're not. So I've seen quite a few people express their excitement for this Witcher 3 upgrade. But something else that happened this week was for the Callisto Protocol. Did you guys see that people were basically tearing this game down somewhat because they announced that there's going to be 13 new death animations? See, I feel like this is kind of silly. I don't blame people for being cynical. I understand. I just think the market, like, that's not, I don't think you want to market that for your game. You know, like, I don't think marketing death animations is a smart idea, because it's just funny to think that if you buy DLC for a game that has combat, you're likely getting new animations, you know, that are exclusive to maybe the new enemies or whatever in that DLC, but that's never marketed, you know? And it just, I don't think it's a good look to market animations. To me, that's my cat is trying to get out of here. We're almost done, Leia, don't worry. But, you know, I guess the final thing I'll say before I end the podcast is, you know, I basically just gave my, you know, for all intents and purposes, I gave my final thoughts on God of War Ragnarok. And, you know, I'm going to be working over the next couple of days to make sure I can try to platinum this game before the Callisto Protocol comes out. But I'm really excited for the Callisto Protocol, man. Like, I think that this is kind of a treat where back-to-back AAA single-player narrative-driven games that look very high quality. I mean, obviously God of War was, but it feels like a real treat to now, as soon as I'm done with God of War and I put that down, I'm just, boom, now I'm just right into the Callisto Protocol. And then after the Callisto Protocol, right into Forspoken, right into Dead Space Remake. It's looking good, man. It's looking good. I just wanted to express my excitement for it. And I'm excited to talk about the Callisto Protocol on the podcast. That's a game that I'm definitely going to be talking about and giving my thoughts on once I start playing it. So, but I think with that being said, guys, that's going to have to do it for this episode of the podcast. I really want to extend a massive thank you to everybody who donated a super chat. Certainly some very generous super chats made today. William, thank you for that, man. But also thank you to everybody, whether you donated $1, $20, whatever it was. Thank you so much for that. And even if you're somebody who wasn't able to donate a super chat and you're not able to become a channel member, just being here, watching the content, hanging out with me, interacting with the chat, it all matters very much. And, you know, it's all in the name of building an awesome community here. And so, seriously, cannot thank you guys enough for your continued support, especially during times like this. You know, I mean, I know that there's a lot going on, especially now, right? There's a lot going on. You guys could be doing anything at any time. And just the fact that so many of you choose to, you know, click my podcast, hang out with me, whether it's for an hour, whether it's for the entire 4 hours, or even if it's just to watch my videos, really can't thank you enough. So it means a lot. And I just feel incredibly, you know, Thanksgiving just happened. I forgot to mention, I hope everybody who celebrates Thanksgiving, I hope you all had a really good Thanksgiving. And, you know, it just had me kind of reflecting a little bit and thinking, you know, I'm really, really grateful for you guys here and for this channel and the opportunity to do this. So, all right, that's enough of that. Don't want to keep going on, but one last thing, just hit that like button on your way out. And I want to give a shout out to Devil Shooter. I don't know if he's here right now in the chat, but Devil Shooter does the timestamps for the podcast every week. He does a great job. He does them very thoroughly. The timestamps usually go up in a pinned comment underneath this video or the stream within the first 24 to 48 hours after the stream is finished. So look out for that. If you see him, make sure you thank him. And I also want to give a shout out to my higher tier members. We have the Play Has No Limits Plus tier. So shout out to Chris B, Agile Ice 24, Shark Gomp, PlayStation Pete, Padsy, Pragmaticat, D Luffy, Skin Tight Salmon, Nakamichi, Hidden Leaf Tutaka, Whiskey Gaming, RU46 N2 Ray, and Josh Z. And then we have Play Has No Limits. Shout out to Sir Speaks a Lot, Introvert Gaming Dude, Big Norman 0518, Michael McCon, MBG 9505, DG Ad, Josh McGill, Rune Gasoden, Space Gambler Jr., Lady K, Kevin Kahan, Zanarkan Blitzer, JDTV, Aaron S, Shaky Shako, Tyson Webb 509, and Black Manta 1989. Thank you guys for your continued support month over month. But that does it. That's episode 136 of Press X Podcast in the books. I will try my best to keep the content flowing throughout the week. And obviously, I hope to be here, same time, same place, next week. I hope you'll be here as well. But until then, guys, take care.